Welcome back, and welcome to the Arkham Serial Killer Supercut. This series was an absolute blast to make, and I know how much some of you appreciate long videos, whether it's for background noise, entertainment, or just another chance to tell me I suck. All are very valid reasons. But today is a celebration. A celebration of mankind. We kicked off this journey on April 23rd, diving into the Asylum for the first time, and wrapped it all up on June 17th, when the final part of the series dropped. This, though, is the Arkham Serial Killer Run Supercut, a full compilation of every part of this ridiculous, beautiful, chaotic, and mind-rotting series. It embodies the spirit of r/Batman Arkham, this channel's cursed soul, and will hopefully be a very entertaining time, whether you're a seasoned lover of the man-lore or a new inductee to the cult. None of this would have happened without the absolute legend known as Bartman27, who, during what I thought would just be another stream, dropped one comment that changed this channel forever. Here's what they said. Random idea for an Arkham Knight: do a run of Asylum where you try to get as many people as possible indisputably killed by knocking them off of buildings, ledges into bottomless pits. Over the next few hours, you'll see everything. The highs, the lows, the beginning, the middle, the end. All in canonical order, not release order. For the lore nerds out there, there are even some never before seen or heard bits of lore sprinkled throughout that tie the whole man saga together. So, what are the rules of the Supercut? Well, rule number 1, every enemy that can be killed must be killed. Rule number 2, electricity is fatal. Gotham's thugs have notoriously weak hearts, so anytime they get zapped, whether by Nightwing's sticks, shock gloves, or an electric fence, it's lights out for them. Rule number 3, kills are counted on a play-by-play basis. If I say it to kill, it counts. If I don't, I'm either wrong and they're dead, or right and they're not. Rule number 4, non-Batman kills do count, except in the main story of Arkham Knight, because on that night, man was feeling extremely territorial. No help from the homicide homies allowed. Rule number 5, don't take it too seriously. This entire series is built on a very solid foundation of shitposting, so please don't, actually, me in the comments. We're here to have fun and celebrate one of the dumbest series anyone has ever formed in this beloved game series. And that's it. Thank you all so much for the love and support on this series and the channel in general. You guys are genuinely the best. Smash the like button to spread the good word of man and his murderous family, and subscribe. We're so close to hitting 10,000 subs, which would be absolutely wild. Join us. Join the fastest growing YouTube channel on YouTube named after me. And, well, enjoy the show. Man begins his origins by being told that Blackgate prison is being overrun by victims who escaped his killer grasp over the course of the last 2 years. They're escaping from their government-mandated cell due to overpopulation, and so man goes in to make sure the prison doesn't become too overstimulated. We land and are given our first full kill really early on, earlier than any other game in the Manham serial killer series. The game gives us this victim who stood slightly too close to this wall, and well, we all know what happens here. Before this though, we actually meet Chiller Croc for the first time, which is a monumental moment in the career of the soon-to-be man who jonkles. What you'll notice is that this game is easily the best for this series. Perhaps not in numbers, I obviously don't know that yet, but in terms of the fact it actively encourages you to take lives, even early on, so this will be a pretty fun experience. We follow Chiller Croc up to the roof for a meet and greet, but he's obviously not getting paid enough for this because he's not happy we're here. For some reason, some enemies just die, but I will not be counting them since they just seem to die off screen with no real explanation. But we definitely get one kill here as we blow this guy up, and 3 more guys come in and just, well, die. Probably overwhelmed by the aura radiating from man and Chiller Croc. We have to take down Croc, and he tells us something about some guys who want to kill us. But this conversation is ended when a young Jimmy G tries to take us in, but we jump onto the man plane and head home. We get home and see Fred before we plug in a dodgy SD card we found in the prison, which tells us that 8 assassins are coming to kill us. The Big Chiller, Dick Stroke, Garfield, Silent Snake, White Shot, the Lestecutioner, She, and finally Bone. All of these sent after us by Crack Mask, who wants us dead, because even this early on into man's killer career, he's jealous of our numbers. But I'm going to break it down for you here, Mark. We will not be fighting White Shot or She here, because they're merely side quests in man's life and do not affect the main story. After finding this information out, we head back into the world to go and find Penguin, because he knows where Crack Mask is, and we need to find him and ask him not to kill us. On our way into Gotham, we have to drop by this GCR tower because it's blocking our access to the Arkham subreddit, so we drop in and claim 2 perpetrators of this serious crime, as we leave one to dangle from a gargoyle before dropping him on his neck, and throw the other one over this ledge. We leave and head to find Penguin's secret trap phone, which has his address on it. Here we claim some new victims, 3 to be exact. We barrel into them at Mach 10, breaking every bone in their body and throwing their limp corpses into the floor. We find that Penguin is hiding out on the Final Offer, a rundown ship moored in Gotham's docks. We head over there and again are greeted with more victims. We pull the first over this ledge where he dangles for an undisclosed amount of time, and then we become the man missile again and kill this sniper, who obviously was in our way and did deserve to die, before taking out the remaining 7 thugs with the trusty Manclaw, the handiest weapon in our arsenal due to its range and omnipotent abilities. We get into the ship and meet 2 British roadmen who we make pretty short work of, and then are faced with 2 combat encounters which we cannot claim any kills in due to those godforsaken invisible barriers. But after making our way through the ship, we're introduced to the most generic British woman of all time, and discover the first assassin, the Lestercutioner. And since we're a younger, less honed man, we just boot him in the jaw. A very well deserved victory for man. Continuing through the ship to find Penguin, we find 3 enemies who, after some deliberating, I decided could be claimed as kills as we use the remote batarang to carry an electrical current through their body, stopping their hearts and ending their lives. There aren't any more kills for a very long time, but we do arrest generic British woman and find ourselves face to face with a brute. The brute can be manipulated to grab us a few kills, and so we get to add 3 to our count. But it's worth noting that these are the least controllable of our big buddies in this series. With the Titans we could directly control them once we rode them. The Abramovici twins allowed us pure manipulation as we could control exactly when they swung their weapons and for the most part had complete control over them. But these brutes are the exact opposite. We really have to work for these kills, but we do just that and get all 3, as we eventually find ourselves in a stealth encounter. 6 enemies stand between us and Penguin, and so we begin taking them down. 3 eliminations come from the backlaw right from the jump, before we have to do some quick enemy manipulation and get the next kill by way of delayed inverted takedown. We get the penultimate kill with the exact same method on the exact same gargoyle, before going back for round 3 and being ignored by the last thug, who we eventually manage to get with the Manclaw, bringing this room to an end. We finally get to talk to Penguin, who tells us he thinks Crack Mask was killed earlier tonight, but that obviously can't be possible because we saw him about 4 minutes ago. And as we kindly carry on asking questions, Penguin is saved by the next assassin, Dickstroke. Dickstroke is a tough fight for the uninitiated and untested man, but after a true battle of wills and killer instinct, we trade strokes, hit each other's spots, and eventually bring each other to our climactic ending as we eventually give Dickstroke his final blow. After our encounter with Dickstroke, we pick up our new favourite weapon of mass murder, the remote backclaw. This beastly weapon will eventually allow us to string victims above the ground, allowing for free takedowns, but in the meantime it comes in handy because we can strap enemies to explosive barrels and kill them that way. This thing just unlocks so many new ways of killing for us, so this is a very important moment for Man and his followers. We have to head to Crack Mask's hidden pad, where he was apparently murdered. We know this isn't the case because we are very intelligent, but nonetheless it's worth a look. We leave the Penguin's dumping ground and leave him to do his threesome or whatever the hell he's going to do, and head back out into the city. On our way out, a terrorist threatens us, but who cares, and eventually we make it to the murder scene and add 2 more kills to our count, in what I can only describe as the most unnecessary set of murders we've made so far. Like, he just dangles these 2 city cops over this ledge, where they'd presumably be left for hours. Man could have just drop them onto the floor below, but no, he's a killer at heart, and so he decides to murder them. When we get into the apartment, we find out that Crack Mask, who died here, was in fact a stand-in, and the killer is none other than the Jonler. This is where we first get a hint at the Jonler, but we don't meet him yet. To find out what happened in its entirety though, we have to break into the GCPD and get access to the National Criminal Database, and to do that we need a new gadget, the concussion detonator. Man heads home, says hi to Fred, and grabs the concussion detonator, the most useless gadget of all time. We head over to the GCPD and instantly claim some new victims. Our first 3 come by way of ledge takedown, but the rest of this section is a little bit tricky. There aren't many options when it comes to kill spots, however we're seasoned by this point and use the advantage of the open world to take down enemies by using the glide boost attack, which made me realise we could just use that to clear the rest of the cops here, and so we do just that. We don't get any kills for a good while as we make our way through the GCPD, but we do get a pretty funny moment as I got over the top of Brandon's squad as per usual, and then had an absolute brain fart and used a knockout smash on this cop here, which meant despite trying to avoid this fight at all costs, we had to fight them anyway, and after using all the tools in our arsenal, we managed to clear Brandon's squad out, which is something I haven't attempted in years, so I was pretty happy with this. It's useless in the grand scheme of things, but it was a surprise to have to fight an impromptu fight against half of the GCPD, so I thought I'd throw it in here. Anyway, we continued through the GCPD and found ourselves in the bullpen with 8 armed guards, and after letting our anger out on Brandon's squad, we were able to approach this room slowly and calmly, grabbing our first kill with a delayed inverted takedown. We repeat our success on the other side of the room before grabbing our 3rd kill with the trusty Manclaw, and the 4th and 5th kill with another pair of inverted takedowns, leaving 3 victims to claim. We kill the next cop with the Remote Claw's ability to attach explosive propane tanks to enemies, and get the final 2 kills with the Manclaw and Remote Claw, respectively. After this, we didn't get another kill for like 20 minutes, and I began shaking from withdrawals while we went to fetch this gun from the evidence locker. We had to grab this because when we got to the National Criminal Database, we couldn't get through the door. Unfortunately though, it doesn't shoot bullets, rather it disrupts weapons and jammers, which makes us slightly happier than when we collected the concussion detonator. We head back through the GCPD and find ourselves in the middle of a riot, and by using a well-placed quickfire batarang we were able to pick up an easy kill before claiming another with the Remote Claw. We get to the National Criminal Database, but technical problems hamper our efforts of finding out what went down at the fake Crack Mask's murder scene. Jimmy G's hyper-intelligent Discord mod daughter, Barbara, tells us that we need to do some rewiring to remotely upload the database to our battle station back in the man cave, so that's our next objective. On the way out of the GCPD, we grab another kill using the Remote Claw just to put a nice stamp on our time in the home of Gotham's most corrupt. We finally reach the door to freedom, but end up knocking Jimmy G out, giving him more reason to hate us, but all in all, this was a pretty good time. We will remember you, GCPD. We head underground and eventually get our next kill as we pull this unaware bum over the edge and leave him to hang. Our next kills come just before we upload the database to the man computer. I counted 3 kills here because, and I'm gonna be really honest with you here, I spent 10 minutes trying to get this dumb lump of lard to hit the final guy and kill him, and he just wouldn't, he just refused to hit this last guy, so I knocked his ass out myself. This got very jarring, and a younger, angrier, less dedicated man just couldn't hang about any longer. We find out our new friend, Jonler, is at the bank with Crack Mask making a withdrawal from his savings, so we want to go over there and introduce ourselves. It's here we get 2 kills. Our first kills while in a cutscene for the interested among you, and we meet Crack Mask and Roman Sionis. But wait, they're the same person, so who's behind them? Oh my god, it's Jonler! Jonler stole Mask's operations, and is now our main rival for Killer of the Year. He tries to blow us up, but we survive, and this woman finds the situation way too funny. Jonler sends 7 armed men after us, thinking that's enough. Obviously, this is our first time meeting, so it's understandable he doesn't know our powers yet, but we do take the first guy out with a delayed inverted takedown, and the remaining 6 with some rapid-fire manclaws over this ledge. My game did decide it wasn't going to let me interrogate the last guy the first time, so I had to play through this encounter again, but we only counted the first kills because I did consider counting the second batch of kills over the first, but the first were just much more clean, so I went with them. We find out we need to go to the steel mill because Jonler is going to try and add Sionis to his personal kill cam, so we have to get there before he does that. We get to the steel mill and add 7 names to the count as we eliminate the guarding thugs outside the mill's front door. I don't know if this is true, but I think this has to take the steel mill to the top of the pile as the most reoccurring place we've got the most kills at in the series. I mean, if you count its inclusions in Arkham City and this game, we've got to be around 20 at this point, which is pretty cool. I mean, someone needs to fact check that, but it's pretty cool. Anyway, we get our first kill with the Claw, the second with the ledge takedown, and the last 5, again, with the Claw in some of the more definitive kills in the series so far. Man gets into the steel mill, adds these two to the count, and eventually finds another brute to play with. The brute gets us another 10 kills, which is massive for our count. We get these by using the seemingly useless concussion detonator to stun him a few times, and aggro him enough to swing wildly, and he eventually starts sprinting out. This was a big surprise when it came to the numbers, because I just didn't remember this section even existing. Never mind having this many enemies to take down through the brute, it was a truly wonderful time. We head through the steel mill and get our next big stealth encounter, where over the course of this room, we managed to add 8 new bodies to the count, using the inverted takedown, remote claw, and man claw. And as per is normal for this series, the claw does the heavy lifting, grabbing us the largest majority of kills in the room. One of the guys even ended up in the packaging line, which was incredibly funny to me when I was recording this. On our way into meeting Sionis properly, we grabbed the best upgrade so far, the heavy real ammo for the remote claw. This upgrade allows us to string enemies up from afar, giving us what is essentially free inverted takedown kills, without us even having to be on the gargoyle. We meet Sionis and are about to kill him, but he's saved by the next assassin, Silent Snake. Snake poisons us, which isn't good, because without man there are no kills, and that isn't a world I want to live in. So we get the cure pretty easily, and kindly ask Silent Snake why she became invisible. She tells us all of Jonler's assassins are meeting at the Gotham Royal Hotel for a quarterly meeting where words like bandwidth, low-hanging fruit, and circle back around will be used. And so that's our next stop, because as a YouTuber, we hate corporate jargon and having a real job. On our way out, we lock Silent Snake in a container to die from starvation, and grab another kill with the remote claw on the way out. We fly across the city, surveying our potential prey, and we get hacked by the Charles Cardy YouTube channel, who isn't here to plug a sponsor. Although if there's anyone out there who wants to work with me, hit me up. The email is in the channel bio.
I've hacked Man's communications to tell you to subscribe, because big numbers make me happy. Thank you for listening to my propaganda.
After that quick intermission, Man makes it to the Gotham Royal, where he finds that Jonler has paid the GCPD to protect him and his assassins, and so Batman fights them on his way in because he hates cops, and we make it to the back door. We don't get any kills until we've made it into the lobby, but once we're in, there's 8 victims to add to the chart, and Man is able to use his new toy to its fullest potential, grabbing 2 kills with the heavy real ammo pretty instantaneously, before adding the 3rd, 4th and 5th victims to the tally by using more personal inverted takedowns. The final 3 victims come by way of Manclaw. We check the security cameras and find Jonler's corporate jargon-filled meetings happening in the Penthouse suite, because of course it's happening in the Penthouse suite. We get a bit of an insight into the room, which is clearly filled with boredom, because Lestercutioner is doom-scrolling, and Jonler gets offended by his lack of interest, so he kicks him out of the building, killing him. But from the dirt of death grows a flower of life, as we're given a new lease of it, being gifted the shock gloves, our newest best friend. These gloves will allow us to get so many extra kills. The rules state that if an enemy is finished off while the gloves are active, it counts as a kill, so that's what we're going with. We need to go see Jonler and ask him for the PowerPoint he showed in the first meeting since we missed it, and in our first encounter with the gloves, we rack up 3 kills, which isn't bad. Man carries up to the hotel's elevator shaft and is given a kill by the gods above as he carries on through the hotel. There aren't any kills here for a while, but one more comes when this ninja tries to fly at Man, and he catches him in midair with a straight jab to the stomach while the gloves are active, which again, when I was recording this, I absolutely howled at. Like, this guy gets decimated. He kills someone else in the elevator shaft as we eventually make it into the Jonler's funhouse. Man is able to flex his new gifts twice here, the first coming when this small group of enemies dare oppose our reign of terror, and Man adds 2 of them to the count. The second example of our humble flex come when this slightly bigger group of enemies gets in our way, and the biggest of the thugs falls first while the gloves are active, before he manages to add 3 more victims to the count. Jonler congratulates us on our resounding success as we leave his funhouse, and we get to increase the count when we get to the bar. Here, Man is able to use the gloves to kill another 4 fools who got in his way at the wrong time, which we don't sniff at. As we get closer to Jonler, his men begin duplicating, giving us 7 new victims here to take down. We do that and add all 7 of them to the counter in a wonderfully brutal display, before some of Bone's men, aptly named the Boners, come to try and break up the party, which was most disappointing, but what did lift our spirits was the 3 extra kills they brought with them. We could have had more, but the gloves ran out of charge when we were beating the first guy down, and that was just a whole thing. But we then enter the swimming baths and are faced with 8 armed boners. 3 boners are taken down with the remote claw, which leaves us with 5. 3 of them are taken out using the man claw, which works quite nicely, but in what I can only describe as a complete fuck up on my end, I took down one guy using a silent takedown knockout smash, which I only realised I did when editing this video, so to make up for that I took the last guy out with a remote claw by attaching him to an explosive barrel. I can't believe I fucked up that badly, and so as punishment, Bone grabs Man and throws him around a bit. We meet Jonler, but he won't give us the PowerPoint, and Bone begins killing us for asking about it, which I think is a slight overreaction, but alas, we end up on the top of the Gotham Royal with a Titan enhanced thug running at us, a true full circle moment. Fred tells us we should call the cops to help us deal with Bone, but Man tells him that after we concussed, killed, or otherwise put out of action over 3/4 of the GCPD, it's probably not the best idea to try and ask them for help. Bone begins using the prone bone move on us, named because when he uses it, we end up on the floor. But we managed to get 3 kills here in the initial phase of the fight on the roof. 2 by way of glove and 1 by way of Bone. In the second part, I think we got a kill with Bone, but I can't be sure. I'm going to count it because he gets knocked down and then ran over again, so I think he's dead. Oh my god, it's so warm in the UK. It's so warm. I'm dying. I'm doing this voiceover. I'm dying. I can't have my fan on. God, the things I do for YouTube, man. This is horrible. This is actually horrible. Bone gets really angry that we aren't taking our boning lying down, and this anger annoys the GCPD so much they show up and begin trying to kill Man, Bone, and Jonler. Bone's men save him from certain death at the hands of Man. Jonler nearly dies, but we manage to save him. But once again, the GCPD show up and ruin the fun, as they take Jonler to Blackgate, and we escape in the man plane. What awaits us is a whole lot of backstory, which we don't care about because we only look forwards. Forwards to our next kill. And I won't be counting the Jonler's kills here because he isn't Man. Back in the man cave, Man hears one of Bone's men has died in the GCPD morgue, so he grabs a new gadget, the globular projectile for non-lethal restraint, and he begins heading out. But as Man walks up to the man wing, Fred stops him and begins telling him he isn't the killer he thinks he is. He's weak, he doesn't have it in him to rid Gotham of its worst criminals. But Man calmly takes this feedback on board, and much like me responding to someone's comments telling me my videos are quote-unquote self-indulgent, he tells Fred to fuck off, and he heads out into the city to find Bone's dead boner. Once Man makes it back into the GCPD and into the morgue, he finds the boner dead and discovers he took too many blue pills, became dumb, became big, and became dead. While Man does some loose detective work into what killed this poor boner, he hears Bone's gamer rage coming from the other side of the city, and so he gets in the man wing and heads over to Bone's gamer hideout, where he grabs 2 kills on the way in. On our way into the Boner bunker, we kill 3 thugs here, and another 4 here, before finally making it to the Bone bedroom, where Man discovers that Bone has found out his real identity. The man behind the man, Bruce Man. Man, furious at this, blows the Bone bunker up, and tells Fred he needs to get in the man cave or he'll get boned to death. On our way back to the man cave, we hear that Garfield is burning down the giant obstructive bridge connecting the shitty side and the nice side of Gotham. Personally, I have no issue with this because I hate this bridge, but Man, in his infinite wisdom, knows that there will be plenty of kills to grab here, so we head over there purely to grab some extra kills. When we land, we manage to kill 4 of Gotham's finest on the way in. We eventually, after way too long, get some more kills in this stealth section. The first 3 come by way of remote claw, stringing these victims up before adding more victims to the count with the trusty man claw, 4 to be exact, with the last guy surrendering like a bitch. We listen for his plea for mercy and allow him to live. A moment of weakness for Man, but again you have to remember he's a lot younger here. We then head over the bridge a little bit and find 4 new victims, which is nice, but what's nicest is the fact we get to knock Brandon's head off. In this room we grab 4 more kills, 3 with the back claw and 1 with the remote claw, and an explosive barrel before we head on to the other side of the bridge and string these poor fuckers up with the remote claw. Sorry if I rushed through those 2 parts of it, but I'm so excited for this next part, because like we did in the Asylum, like we did in the City, we finally get to use an electric fence to take out a bunch of enemies. We engage the thugs and get 7 kills using the fence, before taking the last 4 guys out with the gloves, in a moment in time which nearly brought tears to my blackened heart. Seriously, I was very excited for this moment, because it brought me back to simpler times, when this madness all began in the walls of the Asylum. It was truly wonderful. We start to head over to the other side of the bridge and meet 5 more victims who we dispose of pretty easily, easier than I thought going into this small encounter. We fumble the remote claw kill but get an easy ledge takedown, followed by the 3 most lackluster kills in the series, as we just hit these guys back down the ladder they climbed up. It's a disappointing display, but we can't complain as we had another 5 kills to the count. Once we get onto the bridge to fight Garfield, we take 4 thugs down with the shot gloves in the first group of thugs who come down after us. But that's not where we end, because my count, in this second phase, we get 5 kills before we fight Garfield. We make short work of him after we cover him in the globular projectile for non-lethal restraint, and throw sharp metal manarangs at him, until eventually knocking him out for later killing. Man has to do this really quickly because Bone is en route to Man's house. Oh, he's already there. By the time we get back, Bone has left and made a mess of the place, burying Fred in rubble. Rubble we pull him out of before realising he's dead. Unfortunately, we quite like Fred, so try and revive him, but after a few tries we just decide to crack his sternum and holy shit, it woke him up. I mean, I hope he didn't hear all that about cracking his sternum and killing him. Anyway, Man gets a report that Blackgate Prison, the prison we started the night off in, is under attack again. Riots have broken out again, and we need to stop them, and all jokes aside, this is the most rousing scene in the Arkham games. The music, the speech from Alfred, the radio reports, the self-doubt from Bruce, this scene is fucking cinema. I love it. Anyway, we head to Blackgate because we need to stop Jonler and Bone from stealing all of our kills. We tell Fred to not get killed again, jump in the man wing and head to the prison. Upon arriving, we find some victims who are about to meet the hammers of electrified justice as we accidentally get a few kills due to my skill issue. As this thug throws an explosive canister at us, but we just headbutt it like Drew McIntyre's Glasgow Kiss, and we get 3 kills because of it. The fight continues, and we get another 2 kills with the shot gloves, before telling the security guard he's a bitch and heading into Blackgate. Our next group of kills come as we save a few hostages from 10 armed guards, and in true murderous man fashion, we begin taking names. The 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th kills come with the ever-lethal Manclaw, and yeah, we cleared the whole room with it. There's no other method here, the Manclaw wins again, lol. After that one-note room-clearing display, we manage to make our way into the prison and find a group of escaped thugs doing escaped thug activities, and we eliminate 5 of them using the trusty shot gloves. They're definitely proving themselves as handy little weapons. Get it? Handy little weapons, because they're on his hands. Okay, you can unsubscribe now. Thanks for watching. For those of you who enjoyed that sad little joke, we continue to get more kills, but not before meeting Dickstroke doing some push-ups. I hope they make a sequel where you get to play as him, maybe even a Suicide Squad game. Maybe it could be cool to have him as a main character, and you could keep the free-flow combat and Arkham stealth, but make it more lethal and craft a really cool storyline about the squad having to fight off an otherworldly threat alongside other squads of heroes, maybe alongside the Justice League. That could be cool. Shame it'll never fucking happen. Next up comes a room of thugs and a room where my count will definitely not be right, but let's give it a go. I think we got 11 kills here, a few with the gloves and at least 1 by way of brute. This was all a bit hectic, but that's my final count. I fumbled so hard during this section and could have easily gotten 15 kills if I'd not been playing Arkham Origins for 6 straight hours at this point on the 2nd hottest day of the year in the UK. The things I do for you guys, I could have been outside with my friends and who am I kidding, I don't have any friends, I'm a YouTuber in England. But anyway, 11 kills is not to be sniffed at, perhaps looked at sideways but not sniffed at. More enemies await us, and this time we kill 5 of them. Again, there's definitely room for more here, but 5 is a pretty decent number. It's hard with the shot gloves, because you have to strike the balance between charging them up and leaving enough enemies to use them on. I don't know where that balance is, but it's there for people much smarter than me to find. Finally though, we meet Jonler, who tries to add more kills to his own count, but thankfully we stop him, much to the dismay of Bone, who comes down to tell us that someone will die, either himself, us, or Jonler, who's now put his life in our murderous hands. It would be perfect if we could just kill them both, but if you've seen the other parts of this series, you'll know that clearly doesn't happen. Although, given Bone's brain-dead approach to things later in the entries, it's safe to assume we gave him a fate worse than death anyway. Well, he did, but that's not the point. When we finally get to fight Bone, he begins his prone bone move on us again, but we move out of the way, giving us another 4 kills to add to the count. It's worth mentioning 2 of these kills came from Bone throwing bodies around like darts. In the second phase of the fight, Bone actually stops us from getting a kill, but also doesn't get any himself. I couldn't believe this. I was genuinely convinced this was our best chance to just stat pad some kills. But hey, you can't win them all. I do want it known that man does temporarily put Bone in a state of death, and he nearly doesn't revive him in time, so we might just add him to the count for the sake of rage baiting some people into telling me how wrong I am and how I know nothing about these games. So Bone gets added to the count. But only for a few seconds, because he wakes up, injects himself with what I can only assume is Mango Loco Monster, because he gets a sudden burst of energy. Energy we sap from him as soon as we pump 200,000 volts into his body all at once, quote unquote, knocking him out. And I swear to God if he wasn't in any of the other Arkham games I'd have added him to the count here, because man makes Bone's body limp in a pretty brutal way here. Man knows there's only one man left we need to deal with. The Jonler. We head to find Jonler, but are met by Chiller Croc, and this cheeky motherfucker shoots my goat. I'd have gladly taken the bullet for my glorious king here, but Jimmy G didn't know that. I would have, again cementing the fact that he doesn't know shit about us yet. Man and Jimmy G have to run duos together to protect the Warden from an onslaught of escaped prisoners, but for some reason known only to the Almighty and Vincent K. McMahon, we can't use the shot gloves here. This might be one of Origin's funny little glitches, but to say I was fuming would be an understatement, because why can't use the shot gloves in this one specific combat section? We leave Jimmy and the Warden to their business, and finally come face to face with Jonler. Jonler tells us, as he's being beaten to death, that he's sick and tired of us walking around thinking we're the best killer. He continues to try and stab us, while saying he will take the crown of King of the Killers, and the only way to beat him is to kill him. Man doesn't though, knowing the only way to get better is through competition, because man isn't only a killer, he's smart. He could kill him now, but no, God Almighty, no. It'd be too damned easy. All man wanted to do was kill him. A minute didn't go by tonight that he didn't think about subjecting him to every horrendous torture he's dealt out to victims who should have been his, and then end him. But if he allowed himself to go down that path, he'll never come back. He'll never know what could have been. So that's man's first documented outing in the bag. A Christmas miracle indeed. 230 kills was the final count. After the night ended, man went home, put on It's a Wonderful Life, and prepared for the coming days, where he'd have to deal with the usual stress of the festive season and the upcoming annual Gotham Conspiracy Theorist of the Year award, which he has won for the last 25 years in a row because of his borderline schizo posting on r/manham. Even before that was cool. The only issue is, though, is that this year the award is apparently going to esteemed Hollywood A-lister and whistleblower Mel Gibson. Man, though, confident he'll sweep the awards again, goes to sleep and dreams of killing, maiming, and otherwise ending the lives of those he deems to be below him in the social ladder, something he loves more than life itself. Man wakes up 6 days later, refreshed and ready to face the world. He puts some lobster thermidor in his comically large microwave and gets ready for the annual Gotham Conspiracy Theorist of the Year awards. He puts on his suit, no, not that one, and begins letting his guests in, judging them one by one, and finally, the night begins. So we begin our night in Man Mansion, as Bruce Mann congratulates Mel Gibson on receiving Conspiracy Theorist of the Year, a prestigious award I'm sure we can all agree. After some truly deceiving dialogue between Bruce and Fred, someone opens a window and it gets a bit cold. Cold enough for Mr. Freeze to come and investigate the sudden drop in temperature. It isn't a coincidence that he's here though, because Mr. Freeze wants to kidnap Mel Gibson for speaking out on the fact that he believes Mr. Freeze is a part of the Court of Owls, a mysterious group who pull the strings of Gotham from the shadows. This all stems from Gibson's appearance on the Jack Ryder podcast, where he outwardly and pretty brutally threw Freeze under the bus for attending so-called nesting parties. Pretty nasty stuff. Anyway, Bruce is annoyed that Freeze has stolen his friend and heads to the man cave to grab the suit. He dons it and heads back into his house to find it's now on fire. Not man's favourite temperature, as he's more of a room temp sort of guy, and so he knows one of the biggest contributing factors to heat in crowded rooms is, well, the people. So to combat this, man has to stop some people's bodies generating heat altogether, and he does this pretty well, using the shot gloves to great effect as he stops the hearts of these 5 home invaders to open up his murder account on this joyous night. Man makes it to the library where he finds Fred is being held hostage, but he cannot allow Fred to be killed unless he's the one to pull the trigger, so he has to defend him from these 9 armed thugs. The first 2 are strung up and subsequently dropped on their heads using the ever-lethal remote claw, before, of course, the next victim is taken out using the best Robin that never was, the man claw. That leaves us with 6 thugs. Numbers 6 and 5 are taken out via Manclaw before number 4 is taken out by way of Sonic C4 before enemies 3, 2 and 1 are finished off using the ever helpful Crutch. We find some men assaulting Mel Gibson, and so we step in to stop this injustice using our favourite lethal weapon, the shot gloves, which manage to add 4 more kills to our count before Mel is snatched out from underneath our long pointy nose by Freeze. After a small case of schizophrenia and genuinely seeing an enemy out of the corner of my eye that just wasn't there, we get to our next room of victims. This time though they have scary freeze rays, but to save Mel we need to find it in our brave heart to not only take their lives, but their lethal weapons too. 11 enemies stand in our way and so we get to work. This isn't a ballroom anymore, it's an operating table and we're the surgeon. As we activate the shot gloves twice over the course of this encounter, we manage to rack up another 7 kills. It could have been 8, but we needed to ask the last guy where Freeze was taking Mr. Gibson, so he gets to live. But this is a very nice boost to our count, and if I'm being honest, this is already exceeding any expectations I had for this run. The last guy tells us we need to go to see one of Penguin's arms dealers to ask him where Mel's going. And on our way we notice that the giant bridge connecting the shitty part and nice part of Gotham is frozen over, which brought us immense joy because fuck that bridge. Anyway, we get to the location, but when we get there all we find is a bunch of armed guys and not much else. This is where we were able to experiment with how many kills we'd get here. Mainly, we did some experimenting with the new explosive barrels which litter the world, but sadly they only act like the freeze blasts in Arkham City. However, they do have the funniest way of telling you that the enemy is in cryogenic suspension by telling you the thug has minimal life signs, which definitely got a chuckle out of me, but unfortunately this doesn't mean they're dead, which is a shame. We don't get any kills here, and in hindsight we probably could have by abusing the glide boost attack, but we do find a trail of human liquid, and follow it to the man we need to find. Oh, also, to the surprise of absolutely nobody here, Arkham Origins crashed, so I did have to restart. On the way we witnessed a bank robbery where we were able to grab 4 more kills, and this little section was interesting for a few reasons. Reason number 1, it's where I found out that in this DLC, for whatever reason, Batman will sometimes do his base combo takedown animations instead of the shot glove exclusive ones when they're active, so we will still be counting any special combo takedown performed when the gloves are active as kills, as this isn't really our fault. Reason number 2, it's also where I discovered that, again, seemingly exclusively in this DLC, thugs will sometimes just fall over and die when hit with the gloves. There's no animation of them being knocked out, or even the sound you'd usually hear when knocking a thug down. They just fall and die. So again, these will count as kills, because there's not really much we can do about it, and if we're counting the special combo takedowns, it makes sense to count these too. Reason 3, I really like this section. We need more things like this in future Batman games. Like, random crimes like this are so fun to stop. I know we did get crimes in Origins which could appear in the city, but I mean crimes like this, like proper animated series intro bank robberies, car chases, random heists, that sort of stuff. Anyway, that almost got too serious for a second there. Man continues following the trail of unidentified liquid and picks up 3 more kills on his way. We eventually reach the source of this liquid and find a guy watching CM Punk This Fire Burns hype package WrestleMania 41 Saturday highlight, so I understand why he was leaving this trail of unidentified substance in his wake. We have to fight the guys surrounding him, and here we grab another 5 kills. Man not doing his usual shot glove kill cam animations is really throwing me off here, but we definitely picked up 5 extra kills here, and we begin interrogating this guy, who just begins reciting the lyrics to This Fire Burns by Killswitch Engage. So we knock him out, and since we've just remembered we have seen that episode of Man the Animated Series, we know we need to head to GothCorp, which isn't a division of the US military consisting of Goths, but is rather the company that Mel Gibson runs. On our way, we find ourselves in an all too familiar location for Man at this stage in his career, as this ledge is where he claimed 2 of his most unnecessary kills in the series. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go and watch the Origins kill count, because it was genuinely comedic gold from Man. Like, I can't even take any credit. Man can take all the credit for this. It was so funny. We make it to GothCorp and claim a pair of kills instantly as the Man missile smashes into these 2 unsuspecting thugs, breaking all 206 bones in their body. It would have been 207, but no, I'm not going to stoop that low. I am not stealing this joke. We make it into GothCorp and find Penguin and Freeze with Mel Gibson. We discover Penguin is helping Freeze kidnap Mel in return for some of those all-important Reddit updates. I'm also just realising now that this is 2 videos in a row where I've mentioned Reddit. It might be 3 actually. I promise I'm not a Redditor. I mean, it has its uses, and I'm sure you know what I mean by that, but I am not a hardcore Reddit fan. It's just a funny website to make fun of. God. Anyway, when we get into GothCorp, we get 2 kills by way of a double ledge takedown, and are told to bypass the door to go and rescue Mel. We need to get the codes from this guy's identical twin. We get 2 kills on our way to find the other half of the Frank Grillo fan club, and eventually come into this room full of armed guys, and get our government-mandated 2 kills with the remote claw, before getting our 3rd kill here with the good old delayed inverted takedown. The man claw makes its long-awaited return, claiming its first victim of the room, as we then go to use it a second time to claim our 5th kill of the room. Victim 6 was hell-bent on not dying, using the Tombstone soda perk from Black Ops Zombies to save himself, before finally succumbing to the lethality of the man claw. We used the Sonic C4 orang to claim another victim, and the final 3 victims were killed by the Manclaw as we bring our total number of kills in this room to 10. We meet the other Frank Grillo fanboy and grab the codes for the door and begin heading back to it. When we get there, we're faced with 5 thugs, 3 of which are killed by way of shot glove before another group comes in to spoil the fun, but they are not exempt from our kill count as 4 more of them are added to it, bringing this section's total to a pretty healthy 7. Again, I genuinely didn't expect this many kills this early in. I thought we'd finish this run with about 30 in total, but it really exceeded any expectation I had. We find ourselves watching a shootout between Freeze and Penguin after Penguin pulled some serious shenanigans and tried to steal Freeze's limited edition copy of the first Mad Max film. Penguin tells Man of a drill which he can use to get through the ice to go and find Freeze and Mel and, you know, rescue him, I guess. So Man begins heading into the city to find the parts of this drill, and on the way out adds 3 more kills to his count. Once out in the open world, Man heads to the My Alibi nightclub to find a man who knows where the 2 parts of the drill we can find out here are, and claims a massive 7 victims using the shot gloves in some of the most botched combat of all time, where the enemies did that dropping dead without warning thing I mentioned earlier, but 7 kills is 7 kills, and after adding them to the tally, Man realises he can't get into the nightclub by just going through the front door normally, so heads through the main chimney. Wait, no, wrong game. He actually calls in the most badass suit in the Man-Ham series, the XE suit, or Extreme Environment suit, which, apart from looking badass, gives us access to heated manarangs, which can be used to drop ice stalactites from the ceiling onto unsuspecting enemies' heads, and the heat gloves, which for the sake of this run will act in the same way as the shot gloves. Man makes it into the cleanest nightclub in Britain and instantly gets 2 kills by dropping this giant lump of ice on these guys, before claiming another 3 kills with the heat gloves. Man actually has an option to save frozen cops from certain death throughout this story, but obviously he doesn't. We won't be adding these guys to the official number here, but there is definitely a case to be made that they belong on here. He gets his warm hands on Ricky LeBlanc, who we previously knocked out, dropped off a building, and knocked out, and we're back to, you guessed it, knock him out again. He tells us where we need to find the 2 parts of the drill we can find in the city, and we get to the first location, and decide that that which exists without our knowledge exists without our consent, because I forgot these guys were even here. So we begin the slaughter and we get 5 kills, 2 by way of ledge takedown over a precarious drop, and 3 by slamming their heads onto concrete at Mach 2. We then grab the drill part and begin heading over to the Gotham Royal for the second part. We arrive, raise hell, and throw this guy into his friend in one of the funniest kills of the series we'll get tonight, instantly adding 2 victims to the tally before using a well-placed remote manarang to kill 3 more with an ice formation to the skull. Man slides under the door and begins taking names and rapidly adds 4 names to the count before grabbing the next drill part. Man begins heading back to GothCorp to get the coolant needed to power the drill, and once back in the Corp of Goths adds 5 more kills to the count after using the guy with the big gun as a punching bag to power the heat gloves up. We're then faced with what I'm pretty sure is the largest combat encounter in the story, and this time we have a brute do our dirty work, and by using a combination of this Bron Breaker looking dude and our ever powerful gloves, we managed to get a fair amount of kills here, and by my count we got 9, including the brute who managed to be killed using the gloves in the final flurry of punches in this section. A very successful encounter for Man. On our way to rescue Mel Gibson, we encounter 8 more thugs who dare oppose our otherworldly rage, and of course they're made into a light snack, being devoured by the now ever warm Man, and by using a healthy mixture of the Man Claw, ice to the cranium, inverted takedowns and remote claw, we're able to swiftly dispose of these goons in what I'd say is easily our most versatile display so far. I'm becoming quite proud of Man actually, because it's obvious he's trying to branch out. We grabbed 3 more kills in this small combat section, which didn't do anything special enough to warrant talking about for more than a few seconds. Well, apart from this guy who just got up, grabbed the gun and stood there. ominously for a long time. That's all he did. He didn't shoot a single bullet. He just watched us. Strange. Man gets into Freeze's lab to grab the coolant, and after some deduction we find out that Mel Gibson tried to unplug Freeze's Arkham-obsessed wife's PC midway through a Charles Cardy video. Now we know why Freeze wanted to kidnap Mel so badly, it all makes sense now. But sadly, this doesn't make up for Freeze's crimes. He needs to be stopped as much as we now need to bring down Mel Gibson. We also find out the last thing she heard before she was put into a coma following the shock of not being able to finish the Ultimate Batman Arkham City retrospective was her being told to subscribe, which you should totally do right now. Like, do it. I'll know if you don't do it. I can see these things on YouTube Studio. I really need to get to 10k subs by the end of the year so I can tell myself this is a real job and justify my own existence. Anyway, our next group of kills comes when we reach the ice wall we need to break through. And in this giant combat encounter, Man manages to add a fair few names to the tally, 4 in total, which isn't to be looked at sideways. Once we use the drill to break the ice wall and leave Penguin to definitely either die or suffer lifelong hypothermia, we finally confront Freeze, and I'm going to be real with you here. Somehow, someway, I didn't get a single kill in this room. Not one. I thought I'd managed to get one somewhere, but upon reviewing the footage, Man gets 0 kills here. But we still need to stop Freeze and Mel. We sneak up on Freeze and rock his shit with our new suit. It's truly beautiful. But Mr. Gibson freezes us and starts to beat Freeze to death with a part of his own suit, which makes us mad to the absolute maximum since he was the bad guy all along. So we break out of our icy confines and throw a mean right hook at Mel, knocking him out as Freeze looks longingly at his wife, bringing the night to an end. So that brings Man's newest adventure to an end, a wildly successful outing, much more successful than I first assumed it would be. In total, Man managed to rack up a very impressive 118 kills, which technically makes Arkham Origins Man's most successful appearance kill-wise. Wow, what a night. Betrayal, deception, and a chill in the air, all in a day's work for Man. But even he must rest. He heads back to the cave, dons his bat bedsuit and jumps under the covers, while Fred prepares him his favourite drink, an orange dreamsicle rain body fuel. He then tallies up his overall kill count, which now, considering the last week of events, sits at a healthy 348 kills in total, before he puts on his favourite film, A Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and begins drifting into a beautifully delightful slumber, where he dreams of packed graveyards and full morgues. However, tonight's dream wasn't like every other night. No, Man had a nightmare which saw him in jail, imprisoned for his crimes against humanity and his countless breaches of the Geneva Convention. Man sees the faces of everyone he failed to kill around him in this prison. He even sees his friend, Harvey Face, holding a gun to a man's head. Man, though, manages to take control of the dream, grabbing Harvey and pushing him off the building to his death. It takes him a while to recover from this awful vision of a possible future, a future he swears not to let happen. In the aftermath of the dream, he knows he has to expand his kill counts. He needs some help. No man is an island, not even him. He begins recruiting. First on his list is Dick, a troubled boy who relishes the thought of someone being fried to death by mass electrical current. Then he recruits Jimmy G's hyper-intelligent Discord mod daughter, a girl who may lack some spine, but she's as brutal and as murderous as they come, so she joins the ranks. And finally he recruits Dim Trake, aka Rotting, a boy who he actually hates. But he has potential, and so after working together with the newly hired Bat Babies, he decides to finally send Rotting and— Whoa, slow down. Okay, well, I guess that's kill number 1 already. Who knows how long he was being left dangling there. The next kill comes when Ghul glides into this thug at high speed, kicks him in the neck and throws him into this wall before hitting this pretty cool pose. The third kill comes in probably the most brutal kill of the series so far. Ghul hits the nastiest combo of all time, using all the skills in her arsenal to take down this guy, before driving her heel into his neck. I'm liking Ghul so far, she has potential. Ghul talks to Rotting, asking where he is, since this is their first date, and he drops in, saving her from a potential bullet to the head by punting this man in the head, as we add a 4th kill to the count before we've even pressed a button. Man has clearly trained his followers well, because this is exemplary work by the pair. You may notice that Rotting switches between male pattern baldness and luscious locks, and that's actually due to a rare medical condition called Ouroboros hair. It's real, look it up. Anyway, our favourite kill counting couple are faced with some of Joker's goons and they begin fighting them off. Their first combined kill comes from a team up with Ghul throwing this goon into the air before Rotting drives his stick into the guy's chest, breaking everything in his torso. The next kill comes when Rotting returns the favour, setting up this thug to be taken right to Suplex City bitch, and I've seen enough Kurt Angle footage in my time to understand that this guy didn't tuck his chin and thus hit the concrete floor and landed with a broken frickin' neck. This is followed by the final kill of this section, as Ghul throws this guy into the air, and for the life of me I cannot understand what happens here, but it looks like Rotting kicks his man into the air before he drives his stick into his chest. I'm not sure, but it kills him nonetheless. While we climb up to Jonler and Harley Quinn's new amusement park, let's talk lore. Jimmy G is being kidnapped and we have to save him and some bum-ass cops, and also Man isn't allowed to join the party due to his 3-day communication ban after he asked AI Darth Vader to recite Ye's song World War III word for word. Oh, and also this takes place before the Asylum, and Ghul is actually Jimmy G's hyper-intelligent Discord mod daughter. Anyway, you aren't here for story or emotional depth, you are here for kills, and I shall deliver. The couple come across this sniper and Ghul uses her elite strike pack gamer hacks to fry this guy alive. I'm serious, this guy is electrocuted in what I can only assume is a pure metal box and left in an electrified state for 5 seconds before dropping to the floor. Adding on to this, he has a sniper in his hand which is most likely made from carbon steel. So yeah, he's pretty dead. Anyway, after missing out on 3 kills here, Rotting and Ghul are faced with an RPG-wielding Jonler, who fires at them and splits them up in the process. This means we'll have to catch up with Rotting later. Ghul makes her way up the inside of the oil rig and finds this blissfully unaware man who is rapidly thrown into this metal railing, killing him after he snaps all the bones protecting vital organs. She eventually finds 8 new victims and begins claiming them. She takes the first down by smashing into him and throwing his lifeless corpse to the floor. These are counted when Man does them, and so we don't discriminate and we'll add it to the count. The next kill comes when she again suplexes a man without him tucking, which means he's either paralysed or dead, and since we're always looking to boost our count, he's dead. The next kill comes when she grabs a man and throws him into this junction box, putting enough volt through him to fry his brain quicker than spending 6 seconds on YouTube Shorts. And the next kill comes when she kicks this guy right across the jaw, with follow through and everything, so he's either dead or has no jaw. And again, we want to boost this count, so Ghul misses out on 3 kills here, but finds herself at the top of the oil rig and does some very light aura farming atop this place, before searching for more victims. She disguises this as looking for cops stolen from the city by Jonler, but she, much like Man, knows that where there's innocents in danger, there's kills to be added to the count. She goes to the merry-go-round first and gets her wish granted as she's gifted with some easy kills. The first comes when she unleashes a nasty spinning heel kick across this medic's jaw, basically executing him. This is followed by a classic sweep of the leg and heel to the neck combo, severing this man's vertebrae and adding him to the count. The final kill of this section comes when this guy's hourglass runs out of sand, and Ghul, I think, curb stomps him. The animation was pretty zoomed in, but I'm going to assume this was at very least a life-altering blow to the back of the head. She gets a call from Rotting and is made aware of the fact Jonler has placed a few bombs around the park to try and get more kills than the killer couple, and so she heads over to the bomb to stop it from detonating and meet Rotting there. When she arrives, she drives this medic's skull into this electric box, which kills him, before the pair link up for another classic kill combo, as Ghul throws this thug into the path of a spinning kick to the back of the head from Rotting, and then Rotting beats down the next thug he kills before jamming the rot stick into his throat at rapid speed, which I'm going to presume kills him due to the vital blood vessels which are around that spot. He follows it up with another killer couple combo, as we run the good old stick through the ribcage from high altitude routine, which results in a fatal jab to the heart. Ghul then has to go and rescue her penultimate batch of comically kidnapped cops as she heads to the Ferris wheel. Once there, she runs into a gang of armed thugs. Her first kills comes when she straight kicks this sniper into a metal railing, which we can pretty clearly see his head bounce off. Her next kill comes when she realises these floors carry the same electrical current as the combined kilowatts of most third world countries combined, and she uses this realisation to bring this man's life to an end. The exact same fate awaits her next kill, and sadly she can't get any more in this section. But the night is young, and a gang of 9 new victims tries to stop Ghul's murderous rage. Her first kill out of this group comes from our most reliable weapon in the series, the delayed inverted takedown, named due to the fact the enemy has to stop moving before we can cut the rope, because this means there is absolutely no chance they can break their fall and survive, and spoiler alert, every kill in this section comes by way of this, including this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and you'll never guess what happens to the final 4 guys. Well, it involves being dangled 15 feet above the ground and then dropped directly onto their heads. This leaves a pile of corpses at the bottom of the gargoyles, which we do enjoy seeing, but the night isn't over yet. No, there's still more kills to get. Rotting informs us of yet another one of Jonler's silly bombs, so we begin heading over there and suplex this man onto his C1 vertebrae, killing him, before kicking this man, and this man into 3 separate spotlights, which result in fatal amounts of electrical current being forced into their skull. Once we find Rotting and the bomb, we disarm it using the code which reads sub to Charles Cardy, and then are jumped by even more victims. The first is thrown into this electrical box in what has become a real Arkham Knight classic. Another spinning heel kick to the jaw confirms this man won't be making it to May 26, 2026, which is followed by another one of Rotting's weird stick combos where I actually still can't figure out what he does, or even if it's fatal, but I'm going to assume everything he does is fatal to some degree, and add it to the count. A killer couple combo compounds this criminal's ribs into his lungs, which adds 1 more kill to the count, and a second combo kill means this man's ribcage is ground into fine paste by the rot stick, and our final kill in this section comes when the rot stick connects with this goon's jaw at light speed, killing him. Ghul is alerted to another batch of victims wielding high-powered rifles, but she isn't phased and heads over there to see if any of them can become a statistic, and she's pleasantly surprised as this guy is smashed into the floor at supersonic speed, before another unprotected German suplex ends this man's career, and as fun as that was, it's brought to a screeching halt and we don't claim any more kills here. Our next group of potential victims comes when we head underground to go and hunt some more prey. The first kill here is created by an environmental takedown as we drop this heavy light fixture onto this guy's head, and sticking with the theme of smashing skulls, here's a man's jaw being well and truly spun around the circumference of his skull. Oh, and there's another one. Joker then comes on screen to talk to us about dead babies, which I find very strange. I mean, if I had a V-book for every time Jonler and Ghul were involved in a scene which involved killing babies in this series, I'd have 2 V-books, which isn't a lot, but it's still strange.
Best way to cure baby brain is to get rid of the babies.
Threats to her family, a couple of bad jokes, a picture of a dead baby and a threat.
Another group stands in our way, and so their leader is thrown into the floor after being turned into the human equivalent of a dart, and to follow this up we suplex this man into real wood, Crimea River, before spinning this man's head 360 degrees on his neck. After this, we get what is by far our biggest Predator room yet. We begin proceedings with a Ghul classic, the human dart and suplex combo. It's actually followed up with yet another suplex, which means we can add 3 kills to the count. I also unlocked an achievement that you don't have here, which is pretty cool. I then discovered a new toy, an epic squid. This squid releases gas, which is most definitely lethal considering the description says it was booby-trapped by Jonler. The next line says something about knockout gas, but shut up. We managed to lure 4 victims into our trap, which means we can add them to the count as their insides burn and they inhale some of Jonler's very own laugh pack. These would have been the final kills of this room, but the god of murder, Man, was clearly smiling down on us today because our final victim falls to his death, smacking his head on the floor after he falls approximately 10 feet. We then discover the whereabouts of Jimmy G, who, remember, is still being held captive by Jonler and Harry Quinn, and so that's our next destination. After some more light aura farming from Ghul, who is very quickly making a stake as my favourite character in the Arkham Serial Killer Extended Universe, or the ASCII for short, we make it to our final destination, and find Quinn and Jonler ready for a showdown between the 2 couples who are vying for the title of the coolest killer couple. The first kill of the fight comes when Ghul sets up this man for Rotting to boot straight in the solar plexus, killing him. The next kill was made infinitely more funny as I was writing this script, as I realised this guy's the first man in the series to quite literally be slammed through the floor. This DLC really is a love letter to the series. As poetic as it would be to have this love letter to the series be the final kill of the run, the next kill comes through Ghul and Rotting moulding this man's skull into a fine point. This is the final kill of the run, but it's not quite over, because Jonler, seeing himself and Harry getting their asses whooped, one in particular, if you smell what I'm cooking, decides to take his girl hostage and use her as a distraction to escape multiple life sentences at the hand of the law. Look, we've all done it one way or another. Jonler jumps from the oil rig and ironically lets Quinn take the fall as he activates his glider and somehow glides all the way back to Gotham without swimming at any point. Jimmy G tries to thank the killer couple, but somehow doesn't realise his daughter is in fact Ghul. This brings the night to an end. A night full of kills, like more than I thought, but how many did we actually get? Well, by my count, we got 61. Now, obviously, this could be improved upon if you killed the enemies in the open world, but if you've seen the series before, you know we tend to only go after the ones who hinder our progress in the main story, so 61 is the final count. The first time we see kills get claimed without Man, and wow was it a successful outing. 61 kills Man has to add to his tally board, which now takes the family total to 409, which isn't to be sniffed at. A few years would pass between Rotting and Ghul's outing to the amusement park and the next confirmed sighting of Man in Gotham. We know he had one adventure where he had to bring the infamous Killer Moth to an end, killing him and hanging him up in the aviary of Arkham Asylum for all to see, but aside from that, nothing. Next time we see Man, he's bringing Jonler into the Asylum, and well, it doesn't quite go to plan for the criminally underprepared Man. To absolutely no one's surprise, there are no enemies to fight for the first 10 minutes of the game, so no eliminations. We walk through the Asylum, taking in the sights, sounds and smells of the most inviting house in Liverpool, as we further enter the Asylum, and eventually Joker escapes, leading us to our first fight. It's worth noting I decided to do this run on hard, not to flex or anything because I'm awful at these games, but it means the enemies will be more resilient and thus allow us to get our combo up a bit easier for some upgrades we'll acquire later on down the line. You might think these guys are also the first eliminations, and so did I, but my sweet summer child, I hadn't made the rules yet and spent 15 minutes trying to kick these guys over the edge, and despite a few close calls, they just weren't getting enough airtime, and it just didn't work, so we pivoted, adapted, and eventually just shocked them to death, leading to our first 7 eliminations by way of electrocution. We find our next 2 victims, but they can't be snuffed out, so are left to sleep in the corner. I tried to lead them to an electrified door or ledge, but got locked in the hallway. So despite smashing the back of this man's skull in, he's probably still alive as we head to take Zaz down, who doesn't die by our hands. Our job tonight isn't to stop the Joker's plan to create an army of Banes, it's to make his men wish they weren't born. So we continue through the vents of the Asylum and eventually find ourselves in the Joker's gas room. We leave these men to die, but have to purify the air to continue, so we are still at 7 eliminations. But 2 victims try and rush us, but are met with a painful and shocking death as they're fried for their insolence, which takes our count to 9 eliminations. We eventually catch up to Jonler, who laughs at our pitiful kill count, so we try to add him to it, but he's too quick and sends a platinum puller after us. Look at the side of that arm. He dies from heart failure, but we did not induce it, so we don't get a kill, but we do get our newest best friend, the special combo throw. This neat little addition to our skill set will become very handy later. It means we can directionally throw enemies off ledges into each other, and when combined with some upgrades later, it becomes one half of our deadly duo. The other half will come later. We find out Officer Balls has kidnapped Jimmy G, and so begin our quest to find him. These 2 guys get to live, and we find Officer Balls' whiskey flask, which leaves a trail for us to follow. We track the trail to an elevator, which comes down to us slightly too quickly because it smashes. And so we have to climb the inner workings of the Asylum, and when we get to the top we get a few more victims. I tried chucking these bozos down the elevator shaft, but invisible walls be damned, it just wouldn't work. I tried everything and they just wouldn't fall. But luckily for us, I made a shocking discovery and was able to successfully add these 5 to our count. I know what you, the hyper-intelligent commenter, is typing right about now. Why, you're relying too heavily on the electric fences, this is cheating, it doesn't kill them, it's non-lethal. And to that I say, first of all, shut up, second of all, you are right, and this isn't permanent, I will not cheese this whole challenge, just this bit, because otherwise there'd be no kills for a really long time, and any amount of electrical current can kill a person, so I'm working off the basis that every time an enemy gets shocked by even the slightest amount of electricity, their heart stops and they die. Anyway, we add these poor unfortunates to our count and miss out on adding 4 more criminals to our count. But here's where we enter our first real predator encounter, a true test of our killer instinct. After experimenting for a while, I found this ledge, which drops about 20 feet straight onto concrete, so this was the plan, lure enemies up and send them right back down. However, the enemies are a little too smart on the harder difficulties of this game, so luring them up would prove challenging. However, we don't give up and we strive for only the best, meaning we were able to successfully drop the first 3 goons on their spines, adding 3 to the count. Jonler begins to get jealous of our nasty KD ratio and sends in 3 more of these poor clowns. One of these guys is dropped from the same ledge his friends before him were, and we have to stalk the other 2 who seem smarter. They didn't seem to come to our trap, but one made his biggest mistake yet. He walked past a ledge, so we struck, dragging him over the ledge, and as he fell, he was caught by the structure below and displayed like a blood eagle. Wings spread, this man became a symbol for failure for the scum of Gotham. But there was still one man standing, but he met the same fate, being dropped onto a railing, smashing his back across it and falling a further few feet to his death, completing the second of the 2 trios and becoming 3 more statistics. Heading out onto the island, we find some vandals beating our sweet beloved to death, so we go and intervene, taking them down in lightning fast time, adding 5 more to the count. We grab one of the more underrated items for this run, the explosive gel, and follow Jimmy G's tobacco trail to the medical facility. On our way to the medical facility, we find 2 painters, and we don't like vandals, so we attempt to take them down with blunt force trauma after a long fall. But alas, I had no way of lifting these vandals far enough off the ground and over the ledge, nor could I knock them off this cliff, nor could I knock them into the water, so I ultimately decided to lure them over to their fellow defacers and throw them all over the ledge of this elevator, adding a massive 8 victims to the tally, easily our biggest jump so far. We break into the medical facility, scurry about in the vents for a while, and eventually get spat out in the most iconic stealth encounter in the series. Paging Dr. Bat, Silent Night, the sanatorium, however you know it, it's iconic, and today it's our kill room. Some deliberating was done, and I ultimately came to the conclusion that blowing walls outwards onto thugs would kill them. I mean, they're being smashed in the back of the head with rock at probably terminal velocity from about 5 feet, so yeah, they're dead. And as we see in the final fight of this game, the explosive gel is powerful enough to knock a Titan Enhanced Joker back, so I'm using that as the basis for this rule. After some experimenting and playing around, I eventually managed to kill everyone by blowing a ceiling, a wall and a floor up with the gel, and they all got annihilated, especially this guy, holy shit. That leaves 2 victims left. One gets thrown into the same hole as his friend, and the second gets, well, he also gets thrown into that same hole. Clearing the room out as we rescue the doctors who send us to rescue more doctors, as we had 5 more victims to the tally. We head for Dr. Chen first, who springs an ambush on us as Joker tells us to fight back. I'm really glad Joker protected us from that evil doctor. The rage which flows through us after the doctor's clear attempt to ambush us means we break out into a murderous rage, electrocuting 8 men to death. We nearly saved one from that fate, but he got what was coming to him eventually, adding 8 new spots in the Arkham prisoner graveyard. We start heading to rescue Dr. Young, and have to, unfortunately, spare 3 inmates from death, but the game allows us to feed our dark passenger as we save Young from 5 thugs, killing them all with blunt force trauma to the back of the head, adding 5 to the count. After saving Young from her captors, we head to find Dr. Kellerman, and have to save 2 inmates from death, because despite my best efforts, I couldn't find a good way to steal the light from their eyes. Batman gets into the room full of Joker gas and gets a free hit, as Razor, one of Joker's biggest fans, dangles above a room full of Joker gas. Now again, I know what you're saying, actually he lives and he's killed by the Joker later when he's rigging gargoyles and explosives. Well, I don't care. I refuse to believe it's the same guy anyway, and so we cut the rope, feeding Om Nom, and leaving this man to marinate in the sweet stench of Joker gas. Trust me, I waited, I needed to confirm the kill. We rid the room of gas and head back into the sanatorium, sparing this high security henchman from death as we go. When we get back to the sanatorium, we're ambushed by 3 new victims who are all promptly dropped to their deaths, adding another 3 names to the list. Spoiler alert, there are no kills or opportunities to take a life between here and meeting our favourite luchador El Grande Mexicano, Bane, so we'll skip Scarecrow and fast forward to saving Jimmy G. We take Harley Quinn down and begin our fight with Bane. Bane has a few moves we can trick an enemy into running into, which we are counting as our kills, because we're manipulating them into the position to be killed, so let's count them. We get 1 guy killed when Bane charges at us during the second phase of his fight, another killed soon after when he charges us for the second time, another killed when we dodge a literal ton of bricks and leave an inmate in our wake in the funniest death of all time, and then 1 final enemy is killed as we lure Bane into his path, closing out phase 2 of Bane's fight. The third phase of Bane's fight gives us another 6 deaths to add to the counter, as Batman and Bane bring the ceiling down after their fight, presumably killing the inmates who don't make it out. I say this because if Bane had to smash his way out and Batman had to frantically look for a way out, anyone without plot armour or superhuman strength would be crushed to death. We make it out and find ourselves sending Bane and our Pookie Batmobile into the Asylum Bay, before telling Jimmy G that Bane said Dr. Young is currently healed, as we begin heading to our favourite location in the Asylum, Dead Man's Point, to dig up whatever we can about Dr. Young. After hanging up on Oracle's cold call, we find 8 more victims to add to our list, 2 of which are more of those goddamn vandals from earlier. We rounded them up and led them to their doom. I had to do some experimenting but fell back on ye old faithful elevator, throwing and punching the criminals to their death, this guy especially covering about 50 feet before hitting the ground in splendid fashion. We continue around the island to Dead Man's Point, and on our way we run across these 4 unfortunates, and it's here I came to a realisation. 3 explosive gel blasts is definitely enough to kill someone. Again, look at what it did to Titan Joker. I appreciate he was electrocuted beforehand, but the initial explosive gel blast must have been pretty strong to knock him back. So for these guys, I led them atop a tower and blew them up. One went flying over the edge, another hit his head off a metal bar and died, which left 2 more, and so I led them up the other tower, and 1 blast later they were both dead, taking 3 blasts before they met their maker. We head into Dead Man's Point and gang stalk Dr. Young. We find out she's making Titan, and funnily enough we don't care, because we get the other half of the deadly duo, the Batclaw. The Batclaw will save us so much pain when thinning the numbers of Joker's men. It means we don't even need to see the light leave their eyes as they fade out of existence, because it has a pretty good range. After procuring the Batclaw, we get to test it out on this guy who's dragged down to hell, adding 1 more onto our count and cementing the Batclaw as a valuable ally. 5 more thugs test our might, but are all quickly disposed of before you can say abyss. We meet Croc, scale the viaduct while Oracle tells us about dead babies or something, I don't know, I didn't listen, and make it back onto Arkham Island, where we need to get to Arkham Mansion to find Dr. Young's formula for what I believe is meth. It's here we meet our hardest challenge yet, an open space with 2 guys who have guns. After much deliberation, I figured the best way to deal with these guys was to drag them over the ledge and drop them directly onto their necks, which worked quite well, but then there was the small issue of the other 4 criminals waiting for us, so we blew one up, killing him, and dragged the other 3 over tall ledges with the Batclaw. 5 enemies stood between us and Arkham Mansion, but sadly we couldn't claim their lives. Our final hurdle before getting into the mansion comes in the form of 4 armed guards, all of which are dropped directly onto their C1 vertebrae and killed, allowing us easy access into the House of Horrors. 3 enemies waited at the door for us, 3 enemies were electrocuted to death. Inside Arkham Mansion we face our biggest single encounter yet, 10 new victims which I thought would escape our cold grip, but out of the corner of my eye I spotted this electrical fence, and so disposed of them pretty easily, using their own momentum against them as we add another 10 victims to the list. 6 enemies met us in the library and again were disposed by way of electrocution before Joker wanted us to save these hostages. I tried to let them die, but we outmogged Joker's false killer instinct and he didn't have it in him to kill them, so we don't get to add these to our count. We then leave the library and continue trying to find Dr. Young's meth formula. On our way out we find 2 more victims and feed them to this electric fence before finding ourselves in the records room where sadly we actually have to save lives. We do this by ending 6 more though, dropping them on their head using the Batclaw. 3 more enemies block our path into Dr. Young's office, but they escape the cold hand of death, and after some story which we don't care about because no one gets their lives ended, 4 more enemies step up to us. Only one of them dies after being thrown through a glass window and subsequently dropped on the back of his head, killing him instantly. Sadly, the other 3 escaped their fate and survived. There was simply no way to snuff them out. We go back to the library, destroy Dr. Young's meth formula, and get gassed on the way out as we enter the second Scarecrow section. Sadly, there aren't any opportunities for us to kill anyone here, so this whole section is pointless, a hurdle we need to pass to continue our bloodlust. Sadly, we need to go and save Dr. Young against our natural murderous instinct, but on our way 2 more thugs escape our deathly touch, and after saving Dr. Young she gets blown up, an explosive end to a legacy of making us save lives, very much deserved. Harley Quinn kidnaps Quincy Sharp, the warden, so apparently we need to go and save him, but thankfully we get 4 more victims to add to the tally, all 4 being shocked to death and dying, cuddled up next to each other. On our way out of the mansion, 3 more goons get away with being murdered, absolutely soul-crushing. We continue through this annoying-ass tunnel, and what makes it even worse is that we can't even kill any of these guys, all 6 being put down, but only temporarily. They best hope we don't cross paths near any tall structures or electrical fences later on down the line. We drop this guard on his neck after letting the blood rush to his head, ensuring he can't break his fall, and then face 6 new enemies. I thought these guys would be pretty easy to take down, but for some reason an invisible wall stopped them falling over the ledge, so we fell back on our all reliable, the medical facility elevator shaft, and all 6 of them were thrown or pushed over the edge, compounding at the bottom in a mass of corpses. We head into the penitentiary, and I'll skip the filler. We don't claim another life for a while, however we do encounter the newest enemy type, the lunatic. These guys, as I'd come to find out, are basically death-proof. They can't be dragged over ledges, they can't be thrown using the special throw move since we need a 5-hit combo, and these guys go down in 1 punch, and worst of all, they run quicker than us, and their jump and choke attack isn't a move we can tank and use the throw attack we get after breaking out of it to throw them over ledges, because it only takes a few of these chokes on hard difficulty to kill us, but I don't give up and I'm not adverse to bending the rules, so for these enemies only, since they're already weak as hell, a punch to the back of the head will count as a death. This comes from the ground takedown move, and I refuse to believe these already weakened Hugo Strange experiments are not dying after a 6'2", 210-pound man with metallic nubs on his knuckles pound their head into the floor. That's an insta-kill, so if any of these enemies happen to end up in that situation, they are going to be counted as a kill. Anyway, we rescue Sharp, get this useless gadget, and have to go and apprehend Harley Quinn. On our way to find her, we get jumped by this fool who falls victim to our first official CTE-induced death, before ultimately finding Harley and getting a chance to quench our thirst for blood properly. This guy's thrown to his death and fried, his friend joins him, and then the 2 final enemies of this section are fried in more familiar means against the electrical fence. 5 more thugs try their luck, but after 3 of them are thrown to their deaths and my trusty backclaw failed me in dragging them down to my level, we have to admit defeat and 2 thugs in this section get away relatively unharmed. Quinn escapes, 2 lunatics fall the right side up and don't get killed, and after we kill these 2 guards, Quinn runs again, this time leading us to kill 2 more lunatics before getting to the absolute motherload of kills in this run, the 3 electrified floor fight. Literally everything we do here will result in a kill, so let's run through them. Electrocution, abyss, electrocution, electrocution, abyss, 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 electrocution, abyss, electrocution, abyss, 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 abyss. In total, we had another 14 kills to our count, a massive jump and our biggest yet in terms of one encounter. Oh, and we kill Harley's baby. On our way out to go and find the secret lab in the gardens, 2 lunatics escaped death, but 1 fell the wrong way and had his head pounded into the concrete. It was on our way out of the penitentiary that I did some experimenting on the lunatics, and came to the conclusion I gave earlier, so we carry on to the Botanical Gardens and get 1 free kill from a lunatic on top of the Sharp statue. We start our time in the gardens really well, grabbing 2 more kills on these guys guarding the gate before getting into another stealth encounter, and after dropping 1 of the thugs off this ledge, we then drag the other 4 to their deaths using the backclaw. Miss out on a handful of kills in this room where we sadly have to rescue this orderly, and our next bunch of victims are in the aviary. After sneaking past our victims to prime them for their incoming deaths, we have to miss out on 1 kill here, but then we get our grubby little mittens on 3 nice easy kills, pulling the remaining 3 guards over the ledges into the infinite abyss below. We get into the secret garden, fight 2 titans, neither of which die, and pick up the line launcher. Not particularly helpful for our mission, but that doesn't matter. We find Poison Ivy, who tells us I get to go and see my best friend in the whole entire world, Chiller Croc. Before we meet the big chiller, we get you to use our backclaw to bring 6 enemies into the abyss, before launching over there and pushing this cowardly thug, who began hiding from our backclaw pretty early on, into the black hole below. This lunatic tries his luck but is swiftly put down, and unfortunately, yet another invisible wall stops us from adding this pair to the tally. A reverse of the stealth encounter from earlier sees another 5 enemies dropped on their head using the backlaw, our real crutch for this run, and another kill isn't added to the tally until we break back into intensive treatment. This random thug, who definitely isn't the guy we dropped in Joker Gas earlier, eats shit, but that isn't our fault, so he's spared from the kill count. The same can't be said for the rest of his friends though, because instantly 4 enemies are dragged to their death, and after a little surveying of targets, 1 more is added to the count, leaving 2 who are then promptly dealt with and added to the counter after facing rough landings on their skulls. My Xbox then crashed and I got told to use the J button to continue, not sure what that was all about, but then another kill isn't added for so long. Oh my god, I began foaming at the mouth for another kill. But between our last kill and the next one, we dealt with the final Scarecrow encounter, watched Scarecrow get murdered, and then went to Chiller Croc's crack Casa, and after sneaking and working our way around his house, we sadly had to drop the big Chiller into the abyss. However, he somehow survives because he simply built different. After saying goodbye to Croc, we finally get our next batch of kills, dropping 6 thugs into the abyss in what I can only describe as a truly euphoric feeling after our story-imposed kill celibacy. Personally, if I were them, I'd stop walking so close to the edge, because seeing my friends dropped into the seemingly never-ending pit below doesn't seem too fun. But who am I to complain? I'm just happy they don't see the error of their ways. We get back into our cave and grab something philosophers have described as very swag and, quote, really cool, that being the Ultra Backlaw. That's right, the normal Backlaw, which has carried us through stealth encounters in this run, has been given a fat upgrade, being given 2 extra claws of death, which come in very handy after yet another forced run of no kills. Our first 3 to break the run come here, when they're all simultaneously dragged down to their deaths, landing pretty badly, and to put the cherry on top, we push their friend over the same ledge, meeting the same sad and untimely death as his buddies. Our next batch of morons to end come wrapped up in the Western Pump Room. How fitting, because these guys are going to get absolutely fucked. 2 of them get thrown into a pump and killed upon impact. 1 guy grabs a gun, which I just didn't anticipate, but thankfully we throw another 2 enemies into the pumps, but life gives and takes, and without getting myself killed, I couldn't get the last 2 in the pumps, and so they got away as the lucky ones. We shut down the pump and head into the worst stealth room in the game. Seriously, I hate this damn room so much. Since I hate this room so much, I'll be brief here. Every one of these 7 bozos are dragged to their death. I didn't want to waste time here because, like I said, I hate this room so much. The hours spent trying to get all 3 stars on this challenge map as a kid have scarred me for life. 2 enemies try and jump us, but they both get blown to smithereens, adding 9 kills to the count in this room alone. Our next encounter brings us to one of our biggest kill counts in a single environment. This fight is usually hard, but doing it while trying to actively kill people is surprisingly harder. We begin with the Titan Thug, who, spoiler alert, won't die, but will be a great weapon. So again, let's go through all of the kills. Electrocution, electrocution, Titan, 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 electrocution, Titan-induced electrocution, electrocution, accidental counter, but is kicked in the ball so might have died, but definitely died when Titan Thug's body dropped on him, and so I'm also really reaching so hard for this. Electrocution, 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 and electrocution. This is an insane jump in kills, adding 22 kills onto our counter, which pleases me greatly. We make our way back onto Arkham Island, drop this guy on his head after letting the blood rush to his brain, so again, he can't protect himself, and the same fate was met by these 2 snipers, before we get back into the Botanical Gardens and meet these 2 mind-controlled Arkham guards, who were saved by an invisible wall, before we finally get into Ivy's lair and begin fighting her, because she hasn't paid her rent. Okay, now this is going to get messy, and there's a better than even chance I'll mess this up because there's a lot of things going on screen here, and so here we go. How many guards does Batman actually kill here? So there's 1 guy here, 1 slightly later on, he throws another over the ledge, and he throws another here. So by my count, this could be wrong, we only actually added 4 kills to our total here. Disappointing, because I seem to remember there being a lot more, but alas, we've made it to the end of the game. And after evicting Ivy for overdue rent and grappling back onto the island, we head over to the visitor centre to finally take our crown as the worst murderer in Arkham. Firstly, we lure these 4 thugs over to the Old Faithful elevator and only get 3 thrown over the edge, but I think you'll join me in agreeing that this last guy here definitely died. He got the punch equivalent of a curb stomp onto a stone pillar. He is dead, so that's 4 more bodies onto the tally. We couldn't get any more kills despite there being 16 potential kills in this tunnel, and eventually after being blown up we find ourselves face to face with Joker. Joker tells us he's jealous of us and he wants to kill us for outdoing him tonight, so he sends 2 of his big guys after us. Little does he know we like these guys, because they mean we can get more kills, so let the party begin. We start by claiming 2 bodies after luring the Titan thug their way, and another during the Titan rodeo. We then begin another rodeo and grab another kill. We then drag a guy down over a ledge for another kill, and that concludes the first section of this boss fight with 5 kills. I know we didn't manage to get everyone, but it would have required us to get more Titan rodeos or luring them over to us, and the fight would have been over too fast, but I'm pretty happy here with 5. But not completely satisfied, because we still have the final fight where we'll bump our numbers up significantly. In our final fight with Jonler to prove who the Asylum's biggest killer really is, we instantly begin outdoing him, electrocuting 8 enemies right off the bat, no pun intended, to increase our count massively going into Joker's second phase. We then bring the Joker down to our level, knock him about a bit as he retreats back up to his pedestal, where he begins to spread lies to the Gotham City news outlets, like I have the highest body count in the Asylum, and I have the most amount of kills in the Asylum. Both of which are wrong because we're here. In the second phase, we get a flurry of new victims, with 7 new names being added to the board as they all get electrocuted on this fence. What makes this even funnier is that I'm pretty sure if they all just stayed in the middle, they'd be safe. But anyway, we drag Joker down and punch his elongated chin a little more before he sends in a final batch of thugs and our final batch of victims. We add 7 victims to the tally, all by the way of electrocution, but I missed the timing to bring Joker down, so we actually get a couple more victims thrown our way, 4 to be exact, but sadly only 3 were able to be taken down. I had planned on taking the last guy down before the final cutscene, but had a brain fart and forgot there's no way you can do that, since when you pull Joker down for the final time, the game ends. So that brings our time in Arkham Asylum to an end. We killed, maimed, mutilated and probably demonetised our way to proving that despite his no kill rule, Batman is as twisted and evil as they come. All in all, we killed 279 inmates. Man brought Jonler's scheme to an end, putting him down and sending him to the infirmary for a while, taking the Man family's total count to 688, which is a huge amount of kills for such a small family. But this wasn't the end of their war on criminals breathing. See, in the time between the Asylum and Man's next adventure, a new home for the criminally insane was built, Ham City, the most wretched hive of scum and villainy this side of the universe, packed with all of Man's potential victims. This was his chance to save Gotham, and after his infamous battle with Condiment King atop the Gotham Cathedral, where he squeezed the life out of him, ensuring his ketchup lined the gargoyles forever, he found out someone else had the same idea as him when it came to culling Gotham's criminal element. But this fanboy had a plan more diabolical than anything man could ever come up with. A plan to round up all of Gotham's criminals, and then end them all, overtaking Man's impressive kill count, and claiming the crown off of Jonler for King of the Killers, before Man could get his murderous mitts on it. After we killed the majority of inmates in Arkham Asylum, Hugo Strange, the warden of the newly minted Arkham City, decides we deserve to be in his maximum security prison because we simply cannot be left on the street with murder on our mind. Hugo taunts us and tells us about Protocol 280, a plan to outdo Batman's impressive kill count. He also tells us our name, which is weird because I already know what our name is, so I'm not sure why he thought to mention that. Anyway, after we let Jack Ryder get beaten half to death and break Penguin's fin, we get unleashed into the city, batsuit and all, and discover our favourite feline friend Catwoman is being held by Face. We head to the courthouse and unfortunately miss out on a ton of kills before we get in, and find Face trying to turn Catwoman into Vatwoman, as he dangles her over a vat of acid. I was worried that we would miss out on an easy first kill as we stalked the armed thug surveying Face's execution, but luckily this was much easier than I thought, and just like that we claim our first kill. It's worth mentioning the wait between kills in this game is rather long, but when we get a chance to kill, we take it, and so we might have 1 kill for the next 30 minutes, but suddenly we'll have another 10, 20, or even 25 in one segment, so it begins racking up quite nicely. Batman saves Catwoman and nearly gets quickscoped by Jonler, who's perched atop the church with an intervention, and so we head over there to see why he would try and kill us. I don't know the answer yet, but I'm pretty sure he's still jealous that we murdered our way to the crown of Best Killer back on Arkham Island. Unfortunately, Harley Quinn is here, but we brush her aside as we have to save these hostages. Batman confirms the explosive gel is in fact lethal when detonated next to someone with no plot armour, and we climb the spire and find that Jonler isn't even here. He tells us how jealous he is of us before trying to blow us up, and we escape his trap and begin tracking him. We track him to the steel mill, and sadly there are no kills for such a long time here, but eventually we get our first real stealth encounter and start racking bodies up. 6 armed guards stand between us and our quenched thirst for death. This section just threw me off. It went against all of my natural instincts. I had to actually physically stop myself from going for the double silent takedown, but I'm a man of focus, commitment, and sheer fucking will. So I stopped myself and reopened our murder account with the classic, pulling this guy over the ledge to his death. His friend joins him a few seconds later, being pulled to his death. This is followed by another classic explosive gel wall to the skull to grab our 4th kill. After some light fumbling, I was met with a nice little hand grenade. A helpful gift, but sadly we can't pick it up and throw it back, so we disappear again. The next guy is disposed of again, pulled over a tall ledge before the penultimate thug was taken out with a good old delayed inverted takedown. I've named it this because to confirm the kill, these are the official rules to this run by the way, you have to wait until they stop moving before cutting the rope so their limp body drops to the floor below and kills them. And to finish this room off, we pull the final guy off this ledge and finish the room. We sadly have to save this doctor, but to make up for this clear breach of our murderous boundaries, we grab the wreck gun, my beloved. We make our way to find Joker and tell him to stop trying to outdo us, but we're met with a swift kick to the face as we meet John Hamm. Mr. Hammer here will be the vessel for our murders in this section, because if we use the wreck gun on him, he'll giggle? Okay, that's weird. Freaky motherfucker. But he'll also do a cute little spin for us, and within that animation, he'll hit enemies with his comically large sledgehammer. And since we're inducing the spin, they are our kills. There are 9 enemies here, but 1 is our greatest weapon, and so he doesn't die. So we'll add 8 to the count, all murdered by our wreck gun spin attacks. These are easily some of the more definitive kills, because for the most part, he hits them right across the back of the skull, and considering Mr. Hammer and, spoiler alert, Mr. Sickle are both like a good 7 foot tall and pure muscle, a swing with a hammer which probably weighs a fair bit to the back of the head, or any part of the head, must be an instant kill. Anyway, we take down John Hammer and see Jonler. Dead. We finally got him. It was delayed, but we finally stole the crown for good. We are the best killer. Ouch. Okay, Jonler isn't happy with us, and he's injected us with liquidized CBD, which means in a few hours we'll be too relaxed to kill anyone. He's also got the liquidized CBD in his veins from our fight back on the Asylum, but who cares? If we die, he'll stand atop the serial killer mountain untouched. Joker kicks us out of his house and tells us to go and find Mr. Freeze, so we can grab ourselves a cure for our ailment, the orange dreamsicle rain body fuel, not sponsored. We head over to Freeze's pad and find it overrun with armed goons. I assumed it would be quite easy to outgoon these 5 goons, given the walkway above them I knew was there. However, they just wouldn't go over it, bouncing off it like it was made of rubber. However, as we did in the Asylum, we improvised, adapted and overcame, and made good use of the explosive gel walls, tricking one enemy into falling into the trap. We repeat the same trick, using the other wall as a weapon, leaving 3 enemies left for us to deal with. Here's where it got slightly harder, since we'd have no surefire way to deal with them. But I am evil Batman, and I always have a plan. After all, this game did come out nearly a decade and a half ago, and so I've had plenty of prep time. We used the remote batarang at full speed to knock the last 3 guys up into the air and right back down, in what I can only describe as a moment of pure genius from myself. It's here it became obvious we couldn't get near Asylum's camp despite the bigger volume of enemies to kill, but we continued on nonetheless, using our elite hacking skills to join Penguin's Xbox party chat and listen into his plans and finally get into the GCPD. We're faced with our next challenge in here, another 5 armed thugs. This time though we'd have a few more options to work with than we did outside. We rigged the room with explosive gel before we made our move, allowing us 2 free hits should we need them, and trust me, we definitely did. Our first kill falls victim to the old explosive gel trap, being added to the tally. We then used ourselves as bait to try and lure all the remaining enemies into the next explosive gel trap, but they used a pincer maneuver and this left us stun locked as we tried to frantically get a kill. We did just that and added another kill to our Talia, escaping by the skin of our teeth. The next 2 kills were 2 I had a lot of time trying to figure out how to get like a dumbass, before I realised that enemies still fall over ledges using the backclaw, and that hasn't changed in the last 30 minutes, so we did just that, pulling our final 2 victims over the ledge before the final one, in a pretty cowardly move, gives up, robbing us of another kill. Mr. Freeze is held in the museum by Penguin, so we head over there to save his cold ass. When we get there though, Penguin has set up some jammers. He's obviously aware of our lust for blood because this detour pads our numbers out nicely. These guys aren't added to the graveyard and get away scot-free, well, maybe a few broken bones, but nothing major. Our next count goes up while taking out the second jammer. I had to get pretty creative here because there isn't much you can do, but given the rules laid out to me by the human anatomy, I was able to kill everyone on this roof. We started with a nice little ledge takedown, leaving this guy to hang for an undisclosed amount of time. This is where I decided to add this rule because we don't know how long these guys will be hanging here. Could be days before anyone finds them after Arkham City is shut down, so they are getting counted as a kill if they're left hanging in the open world, so whether it's by heart failure, brain hemorrhaging, ruptured blood vessels, or blood pooling in the brain, this dude dies. Next up, we use the remote batarang on this clown to knock him down a flight of stairs after gaining an alarming amount of air, hitting the ground and dying. I then spent an alarming amount of time trying to replicate my success, spending 10 minutes trying to knock the 2 remaining guys off the mortal coil with remote batarangs. Seriously, it got to the point of insanity. I was just repeating the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I decided to just use a ledge takedown to take down the penultimate guy, and then finish the last guy off with another ledge takedown. Next up, a detour down under, a place full of creeps, critters and clowns. No, not Australia, the Arkham City train station. On our way, we destroy this Kuma and his friend, and then find a poster advertising a monstrosity, an insult to our very existence, a man who seemingly can't die. Absolutely disgusting. Anyway, we find ourselves faced with 5 more victims. We drag our first one directly onto his face after he leans too close to the ledge. In one of my favourite kills of this run, we then glide kicked this poor sap onto his neck from the top of the train car, leading us to reposition, readjust and repeat the process to grab our 3rd kill of the room. Our final 2 targets were rather elusive for a while, not giving up much opportunity to strike. However, call us Carmelo Hayes because we don't miss, and we drag this guy to his death using the backclaw. After several minutes of stalking, we managed to sneak up on the final victim and kick him from atop one of the train cars as he crashed down to the floor below, puncturing along and dying. After completing our mission, we head back up top and fight off yet one more group of lucky thugs, as none of them are killed, but all are injured before we get back into Cobblepot's Castle of Creeps. We meet the Funkasaurus and find what should have been a layup kill, an open net for the experienced killers among us. However, the physics of this game do not make sense. See, in stealth, armoured enemies are pretty easily disposed of using the wreck gun. If they're near a ledge, they can be shot over the ledge and be taken out upon impact. But as I found out here, in combat, these rules don't apply. I tried to manipulate this guy for ages, running up and down stairs, using his friends as barriers, using gravity, electricity, earth, wind and fire, but this absolute meathead would not stay down. He had relentless plus and just never gave up. Apart from gaining my utmost respect because of his will and determination, he also annoyed the life out of me, so I ultimately decided to put him out of his misery. Missed out on a kill I felt was rightfully mine, and spoke to this undercover cop. Sadly, we do have to save his friends, a disappointing start to what I thought would be a murder-filled affair. However, it isn't going to stay disappointing. We make our way through the museum and eventually find the miniature manager, who tells us he's been told by Joker that we're trying to outkill him, and to do this we need to live longer than him, and need the elusive orange dreamsicle rain body fuel. And Jonler paid him the same amount of money I made from the Arkham Asylum retrospective to stop us. So, I nearly cried recording this because we get a fat hit of nostalgia, as we're able to get kills by way of an electrical fence, a memory of the asylum brought into the city and ready to make our numbers go up again. So I'll cut the prolonged play-by-play. We got a massive 18 kills here, a lot more than I thought we'd have at this point, and I was so happy with this. I knew this section was coming and kind of put a lot of focus on making sure everyone in this room died by it, because if you remember back to the asylum, Gotham is full of thugs with extremely weak hearts, and they do go into cardiac arrest instantly when faced with a jolt of electricity. But the fun is not over yet, because we have a friend to visit us. Penguin drops a Titan thug down to help us, clearly turning on the Joker, taking his money and running. The real heist of the century. We get 14 kills here by my count. It got a bit messy in there, but between the electric fences and Terry the Titan, named after Terry McGinnis, and well, this rolling donkey kick into the fucking stratosphere, as you can see by the gameplay, I did consider restarting here, but oh my god, this was too good not to count. Batman rolls, uses the momentum of the roll, and sends this guy flying about 15 feet into the air before he crashes down onto his front, and I don't care what you say, dies. Unfortunately though, Arkham gods give with one hand and take with the other, as we don't get another kill for a while, and in that time we have to save these cops because apparently we're still on the same side, we're still trying to save lives, and we're still the good guys. But the gods send us an offering as we make it into the pterodactyl room, or whatever the hell it's called, because atop the bridges, the great connector of sides, stands 2 free kills. 2 men are dragged to their deaths by our backlaw. Lovely. 4 remain, now 3, now 2, now 1, now none. This room proved to be a lot easier than I anticipated. 5 backlaws and a ledge takedown were all we had to do to complete it, and it went by just like that. The final guy also gave us a very cinematic death, which I will now slow down, put a black and white filter on, and let you watch with sad music playing over it. Okay, enough of that. Next we head over to the other side of the pond, not to America, but to find Mr. Freeze. But not before we attempt to get these 3 goons thrown into shark-infested waters. Hey look, I know it was a long shot, but you can't blame a guy for trying. We find Mr. Freeze, try and blow up this wall, and get choked by Mr. Sickle Murr, the brother of John Ham Murr from earlier. As went with his brother, we used his freakiness against him, using the rec gun to make him spin around and probably chop the other 4 guys to death. This was a tried and tested method before, and thankfully worked here too, because without it we'd miss out on a whole host of kills, and that would make me unfathomably angry. We meet Freeze, who tells us we need to kill Penguin, and to do that we need his little hacking module which melts the ice in Penguin's stolen freeze ray. We then do some light speedrun tech to avoid punching our fellow killer, Tiny the Shark, because as we all know, and say it with me now, game recognises game. We make it into the lounge, which has a giant iceberg in the middle of it, and we punch Penguin's head off for slowing down our progress to get the orange dreamsicle rain body fuel. And he seems a bit sad, but luckily he has a friend to back him up. The insult to our existence we saw a poster for earlier, the biggest piece of shit in the city, with by far the biggest head in Gotham, a man whose very existence contradicts our mission, a zombie, an unkillable zombie, a complete joke. We cannot and will not stand for this, and so we do what we're best at, and rip his fucking heart out. He might not be dead, but considering he can't die, I think we did a pretty good job at neutralising him. This really annoyed me. I'm doing this voiceover now, and I'm still very angry that this thing even exists. Alas, we must continue. Freeze tells us that to create the orange dreamsicle, he needs the forbidden flavouring, blood orange. We know where to get that from though, a man who's been exposed to the blood orange for centuries, Racist Goon. A ninja who knows racist breaks out of a container where she is placed for disrespecting the army that is Raish's army of armed assailants, and gives us a trail to follow. We follow the trail and get jumped, but we don't stand for it, engage in some hand-to-hand combat, place this not at all obvious tracker on her, and are saved by Robin. Oh god, why is he here? The ninja runs and Robin gives us the line launcher. Hold on, so he gives us this hunk of crap and fails to bring the Ultra Backlaw. Yeah, this is why Batman hates it. I hate you now. I get it now. I understand why Batman doesn't like you. We send Robin back to the Batcave and revoke his access to r/Catwoman Rule 34 on the Bat computer for this clear disrespect, and begin following that ninja to find Raish. We go across the city, drop down into the sewers, and accidentally grab the most botched kill of the series so far, using the rec gun on this armoured enemy who phases through the railing and drops to the watery depths below, where it's safe to assume Chiller Croc cleaned him up on his current 3-day crack bender, the mad lad that he is. Our energy is draining pretty quick, and we need that rain body fuel, but we then get to take our anger out from finding an unkillable zombie back in the museum on these poor saps. Despite the warning saying we'd only kill 3 of these guys, we actually get all 6 in one fell swoop, which made me very happy. And I'm not kidding either, I actually cheered when recording this, it's quite sad. It was just a euphoric moment. Praise the gods, we get even more kills in the next room, a classic stealth encounter. This time though, one has a jammer, which means we can't see shit it using detective mode. Our first 3 kills of 7 in this room come by way of backlaw, all rapid fire, adding 3 names to our count right off the jump with the Old Faithful. Our next kill comes after a realisation I made on stream a couple of weeks ago, by kicking this enemy through the gap where the elevator to Wonder Tower would usually be. I made the realisation this elevator is never there this early on in the game for the first time a couple of weeks ago. God knows how I never realised this before, but it came in handy here as we get another kill. Another comes after a backlaw over the ledge, joining the thugs from before at the base of Wonder Tower, before the final 2 enemies meet the same fate, bringing this room to an end again pretty swiftly. We enter Wonder City, find a bunch of dead Arkham inmates which we killed back in the asylum, give this ninja a concussion and meet our parents. This was clearly a guilt trip by Joker to try and stop us killing, but we're a genetic freak and we're not normal, so we don't fold. We eventually meet Goon's daughter, who sends us down this winding staircase, and we get a small sip of that orange dreamsicle, a refreshing energy boost which will keep us going for now. We complete these silly dreamsicle trials, and after fighting this giant sandy racist goon, whose bloodstream is just packed with the blood orange due to his caffeine addiction and knocking him out, we steal some of the elusive blood orange formula from racist bloodstream, which we now need to take back to Mr. Freeze, who can make us the wonderfully refreshing drink we need to continue our killing spree. We head back to the GCPD and give Mr. Freeze the blood orange, but it was obviously the blood orange of unimaginable hatred and envy because he gets really angry at us, so we have to take him down. We do just that because we are just that damn good and leave. As we leave, Freeze gives us a new gadget, the Freeze Blast. How swag. We leave, watch an innocent woman nearly die, and actually add 3 new kills to our count. Unexpected, but welcome. I could have probably got 4 here, but I must have not been feeling myself here. Still, we take what we can get, as we sadly have to save this annoying reporter. Our next stop is the steel mill. We show up and instantly begin clearing house. We actually get 8 kills here. Sadly, the glass guy just wouldn't move. Like, I tried everything, but he was intent on guarding this door, and he paid a price. Not the ultimate one we'd like to have made him pay, but a price nonetheless. Disappointing, but 8 kills isn't to be scoffed at. We get 2 via ledge takedown and the rest via backlaw. Not a bad start to our second foray into the steel mill at all. Our next opportunity for kills comes in the same room as before. 7 armed guards, all must die. The first 2 kills here come from the backlaw, our one true love in these runs. I then accidentally loaded into the Call of Duty World at War campaign on veteran difficulty, as I was met with 3 rapid fire grenades, but we got our revenge as we claim another 2 lives with the claw, the second of the 2 being especially brutal, cracking his jaw off the corner of this metal railing and dying from his injuries. That leaves 3 more enemies. 2 are rapidly claimed with, you guessed it, the backlaw, and the final victim joins his friends by becoming a pile of bones and skin at the bottom of the steel mill's guts, making it a full stealth room completed with the trusty claw. I didn't expect this many kills here in Arkham City, and the night isn't over yet. We still have the biggest combat encounter in the game yet. Before that though, we add 2 more names to the count by way of ledge takedown before we meet Jonler. Clearly a phony stand-in, he literally doesn't have bones for God's sake, and he sends in his army of remaining goons who we haven't claimed, but they aren't long for this world. We had to play the waiting game before John Hammer came in to lend us a hand, all puns intended, and it's through his strength we begin racking up some serious kills. This gets very, very messy. Like, this is probably the most messy bit of counting I've ever had to do. There's just so much shit happening on screen here, but by my count we racked up 16 kills here. I checked this over 3 times and came to 16 twice, so that's what I'm going with, but I can't help but feel I'm missing a couple, but we'll stick with our number. During this fight, a Titan thug comes in to help us, but we've evolved past the need for these uncontrollable thugs, so opt for the more controlled variable in John. John gets us all of our kills in this room, and after we take down everything including John, the Titan thug, and Jonler, Jonler gets us crushed by some rubble. But we don't go down that easily, and Talia saves our life, as she offers Joker the power to become slightly worse than Rexplode. But we're the man who jonkles, and Talia knows this, so she'll tell us to follow our murderous rage. We then get saved again by Catwoman as we discover Protocol 280 has begun, and Hugo Strange has begun his plan to outdo Batman's kill count back on the Asylum. This plan throws us into 2 minds. Do we save our side chick from the Jonkler's plan to become mid, or save our own ego and stop Protocol 280? Well, we ultimately decide to do both, but save our own ego first, and after adding 2 more names to our count on our way into Wonder Tower, we meet up with Man at the bottom of Wonder Tower again. This room allows us to add 8 more guards to our count, which is a good number this late on. We do this by using the newly named Manclaw. Of course it's the Manclaw, what did you expect? But no, seriously, we grab a few kills with the Manclaw, but also mix it up with ledge takedowns. This means the enemies don't know what will hit them, our ranged move or our slightly less ranged move. We really make the most of the stealth systems in these games, in these runs. We get to the top of Hugo's House of Horrors and miss out on some kills here. No worries though, because after using a glitch I remembered from my childhood days on this game, we make it to the top of the tower. The enemies don't see us and then become invisible when in detective mode, because we chose to try and be clever. And remember guys, no one likes a smartass. So we reload and head back to the midsection of the tower, climb the proper way up this time and reach the top of the world. 6 enemies stand between us and our bruised ego's attacker, so we have to dispose of these dipshits the only way we know how. Ledge takedowns, oxygen deprivation and the Manclaw. After stalking our prey and eventually getting the best of Hugo's homies, we finally get our hands on the man himself. The orchestrator behind Protocol 208. Oh, he's dead. Turns out Racist Goon was behind it this entire time. Oh, he's dead too. Alright, no worries, no hard feelings guys. We don't add any more kills to our tally here, but Joker still has Talia, and that's our last stop, our date with the elusive orange dreamsicle. On our way in to meet the Jonler and Talia, we get a nice batch of victims. Our final batch, but not our final kill. Through ledge takedowns and grapnel-powered head slams onto concrete roofs, we're able to claim 8 out of 10 possible kills. It wasn't possible to kill the final 2 guys standing between us and the sweet orangey drink, but alas, we made good progress here, adding 8 victims to our count before we finally meet Jonler. Jonler tells us he is sick to death of our killing spree. Oh, he's dead too. Oh, she's dead too. Shit. Oh, Joker's alive? Wait, the other one's alive too? It's crazy who you run into at airports. Jonler hired Cassius Clayface to play him, clearly threatened by our alpha serial killing playstyle. So after freezing Mr. Clayface and being blown up right back down to Racist Goon's hideout, we find a bunch of clay monsters. Sadly, none can be claimed as kills because, well, they're made of clay. It's kind of hard to kill clay. Alas, we try our best and take Clayface out of the equation. We finally grab the orange dreamsicle and take a swig of it. The swig we needed to bring our energy levels back to life. A truly amazing moment. The night's hard work came to a satisfying ending. Jonler wants some too and stabs us to get it, spilling our final can of it all over the floor as he begins lapping it up like a mangy dog. Joker begins, well, dying, and in something I can only describe as truly poetic, we tell Joker that even after all he's done, we still would have killed him anyway, as the man who jonkles takes his final form as the king of the killers, as Jonler slowly, happily dies of his ailments, leading us to parade his body around Arkham City as a sign of victory, a human-sized trophy. On our victory lap, we meet Harley Quinn, who looks distraught, Jimmy G, and finally Catwoman, and we tell her there's still bodies to be claimed here in Arkham City, bringing the night's events to a satisfying end, and adding Joker as our final kill of the run. And do you want to know something funny? I don't care if you disagree, we earned that kill. So, we made it. The second game is down. The man who jonkles is left standing atop the serial killer mountain. But how many kills did he get this time? Well, according to my count, he got 150 kills this time around. Am I impressed? Yes, I actually am. I genuinely thought we'd get about 40 due to having no electrical fence to fall back on. I'm happy with it, and our ultimate kill came in the form of Joker, who, since we touched him last and we made no effort to help him get a sip of the dreamsicle, does count as our kill.
Rejoice, the King of the Killers has taken the official title. He certainly earned it. Jonler is dead, etching himself in the history books as the 838th kill in man's career. But man needs to rest up. After all, crime never sleeps, but he does. So he heads back to Man Manor, puts on his other favourite film, American Psycho, scrolls Instagram Reels for a while and falls into a deep slumber. But it was here his night took a turn for the worst. Man wakes up back in Ham City. But where are his ears, his gadgets, his common sense? Man begins reliving the events of that awful night in Ham City, when despite his victory, he nearly had to add himself to his own count.
Man doesn't get a single kill this time around. This is a dark time. He has nothing. He's just a man, no stealth, no gliding, and no gadgets. Literally just a man. After Jonler poisons him, he heads underground, hoping to find the answers in the rotten underbelly of Ham City, but all he finds is enemies he still cannot kill. He carries on, the nightmare getting worse and worse as he goes on, in a world with no kills. What is he? He's nothing. He climbs the ladder of slow and painful death and meets his parents. They call to him to come with them, to give up his life of murder and add himself to the count. And well, he does just that, going into the light and... Wait, he isn't dead. It was all just a dream.
Wow, thank you Valstrakuga from youtube.com, link in description. I didn't know you worked here too. It's insane what happens when you dream, isn't it? He wakes up and begins showering himself in spring water, washing the bad dream away for good. A few days pass and man goes missing. Clearly his judgment was blinded from his awful dream of being literally just a man. Rotting knows where he is though. He's in Arkham City again. So it's time for the least interesting and skilled member of the Bat Babies to try and prove himself. We begin, as all good stories do, with a lone man taking on insurmountable odds and getting his head rammed through a TV screen, the small electrical current combining with a concussion to end his life, as we had our first kill to the count. 3 enemies hear the final breaths of their dead comrade and come to check on him, and unfortunately for them, they're met with rotting, the physical embodiment of hatred, and they're also met with the classic rot stick, a weapon so powerful that this man's jugular can't stand its forceful nature, adding a second kill to our count. We find out that man was sent into Quinn's hideout to try and rescue some bum-ass cops who tried to do the job themselves. But as we know, you can't send a cop to do a man's job. You also can't send man. So as a last resort, you send his balding 25-year-old son. The next group of victims find themselves on the wrong end of the rot stick, with the first kill coming by way of throat decimation, and the second as rotting drives it firmly into the back of this guy's neck. Our next encounter came when we found these poor saps standing around and wasting time, but thankfully we brought them some fleeting joy as we tried to take their lives. The first run went a bit south. I did some experimenting and eventually discovered that the invisible walls which usually stop enemies from falling off of ledges which could lead to their deaths is deactivated once they're knocked down. Okay, I might have already known this, but I fumbled the first time. So on the second run through, we managed to send all 4 enemies into the water below, where they're unfortunately drowned. Well, apart from the penultimate guy, who fell, got sucked up into the ceiling, and fell onto the ground. This whole fight was a complete glitch fest, but this was the worst case of it, and so I'm going to assume since this guy got sucked into an Agarthan portal and spat back out, he's dead. We don't get our next batch of kills for a silly amount of time. There's 4 possible kills between the last group and our next large group, but after plenty of experimentation and failure, we just weren't able to add any to the list. Disappointing, but the night's not over. It's still young, and so is our kill count. Rotting finds some of Quinn's thugs fawning over man's belt, which just rubs him the wrong way, so he jumps in and interrupts their party by curb stomping this man with his knee, ending his life before leaving the rest alive. That's right, in Rotting's first solo outing, he's currently showing a ton of mercy, clearly unable to kill due to the lack of women around to impress. Between that and a distinct lack of man to push his murderous rage, we can clearly see Rotting is letting the side down, so let's hope man can up our numbers a bit. We cut to a conversation which takes place 2 days before Rotting's infiltration between Man and Jimmy G, and the pair discuss the possibility of giving Jimmy G his own game, but Man thinks this is a stupid idea and remembers he came to rescue some cops or something, so he heads into Quinn's fortress to try and find them. Man gets inside and begins Easter egg hunting, and discovers that thankfully Jonler and Quinn's baby died. Thank God for that. And he also finds a cop being strung up on a crane hook. He drops in and begins grabbing some kills. Some kind soul in the comments pointed out that the multi-round takedown should count as a kill, so thank you to whoever said that, because you've allowed man to grab 3 kills here, before grabbing another here and a final kill when he slams this man's head into the wall, crushing his skull and ending his life. Man gets told by the cop to head out and grab some more kills, this cop clearly being one of the good ones, so man heads out and turns this fool into a classic man missile, flinging his corpse quite far after smashing into him at Mach 2, before he repeats the process here, and here. And finally, he kills the last guy by trapping him on a portable bat treadmill, wearing him down before he's promptly roundhouse kicked and left to have his head filled with his own blood.
Man then goes out into the industrial district and finds himself in familiar territory, the back of the Jonklers' old stomping grounds, and it's here Man is able to claim some new kills. The first come when Man drags this guy over the ledge with a classic move. A ledge takedown claims our next kill before Man returns back to his old ways, utilising the man claw in a successful display of manliness. Man then claims his last batch of victims using the man missile as he takes the air from these guys' body and throws their limp corpses aside like empty packets of chips. Man finds some poor, unsuspecting victims making small talk, and since he isn't a fan of small talk, he swoops in and kills this guy, and finally this guy, before interrogating the final man to ask him if he knows where he can find some more people to kill. The man does, so Man thanks him by breaking his jaw and throwing him on the floor. We find our next batch of victims training snipers on someone who Man deems good enough to keep alive, so he swoops in and gets a few ledge takedowns. This man goes down first before his friend next to him meets the same fate, before Man hones in on his final target who he promptly dispatches of. Man then figures he should go out and stop Quinn. After all, she does have some of that Jonkler dog in her, so she can't be left alive. But on his way into her house, he finds she's expecting him, leaving a banner out which actually reads, "You're next, Man," which is actually the first time in the series someone gets his name right. Once inside, Man finds himself faced with some security who he has to dispose of, but one man in particular piques his interest. See, the man wearing armour can be hit with a rec gun shot to be sent flying, so Man attempts to hone in on him, but in the meantime he kills these two guys with a batarang to the neck, before, after plenty of missed shots, he finally gets to send the armoured thug flying far enough to kill him. Finally, he takes this guy out with a rapid special batarang to the throat, ending his pathetic life. Man then finds a room of armed thugs and drags one over the ledge to his death before he focuses in on this cop, his ultimate target. Another thug meets the wrong end of the manclaw. Sorry, make that 2 thugs meeting the wrong end of the manclaw. No, 3. Wait, what? The manclaw has hit a 4th thug? Oh my god. Okay, add 4 kills to the count. One final victim eludes us, but after some classic manipulation tactics, we move him right into our trap as we drag him into the storage boxes of instant death and suffering, finishing the room off. Quinn arrives to kill the cop, but we can't let this be. He's our kill after all, so we jump between the comically large bullet and the cop, sacrificing ourselves but ensuring the cop is ready for later killing. Quinn takes us hostage, and that means unfortunately we have to play as Rotting again. But thanks to Man's efforts, Rotting now looks better, as the kill count is looking much healthier than the last time we saw this bum. We need to rescue Man so he can continue to boost our kill count for us, so we head deeper into the steel mill. We find him pretty quickly, but can't save him yet because we need a key card from Quinn, who's in the room next door. Unfortunately for Man though, he's been trapped in Anfield, and for those of you who don't understand that reference, I'm referring to a place which starts with a lot of atmosphere, but as the night goes on it loses everything until everyone in there begins to die of boredom. Rotting realises he needs to save Man from this lack of atmosphere, and on his way to find Quinn he snaps various ligaments in the back of this guy's neck, killing him, before more of the Quinn goons appears and are promptly put down, and by that I mean 2 are spared and 1 catches a Rotterang with his teeth, dying. He finds Quinn, but she's surrounded by armed thugs who need to be dealt with. Rotting uses a Man classic and pulls this man over a ledge, leaving him to dangle forever. He then damn near decapitates 2 more thugs before hitting another with a ledge takedown, a fate shared by his comrade who gets done in the same way. We then finally get our hands on Quinn and beat her down with the rot stick before being rudely interrupted by a thug. After escaping the thug's gaze, Rotting does a loop of the arena and kills this guy by swinging him around and punching him directly in the throat, almost certainly killing him. The next kill comes when Rotting hangs this man by the throat, slams him into the floor and swiftly brushes his body off the ledge next to him, killing the guy like 3 times over. Quinn is swiftly dealt with, again being beaten by the rot stick, putting her in her place before pushing this unfortunate sap to his death before stealing Quinn's card and dangling her over this ledge. It literally took every ounce of willpower I had to not make a joke about how she's left for dead here, but I'll refrain. Rotting gets back to Man and finds himself being waited for by the ops. Rotting doesn't waste time though and immediately gets to work, but he's outnumbered until, for the last time in the series, a Titan thug appears to help us out. But in the biggest betrayal of all time, our friends from way back in the Asylum fails us, leaving us to get some kills by ourselves.
The first comes when Rotting uses all of his force to smack this man's face off his head with a shield. The second comes when Rotting knees this man in the forehead and probably split his skull open before he electrocutes this man's spinal column, frying his brainstem and then snaps his arm just for a bit of good measure. The next two kills come from the same Captain America style shield bash before man is finally rescued, punching his way out of the Anfield ball and gaining his trusty belt back. Unfortunately for our dynamic dimwits, there are a ton of bombs placed around the steel mill in case of a situation like this, so man has to stop them while Rotting hops on IG Reels for a bit. But all is well when man smashes this guy's head into the floor at light speed, killing him, and well, that's the final kill. But not the end of our story. After heading back to the shrine room and finding Quinn surrounded by these goofy robots, man takes out the clankers and avoids being blown up by Quinn's comically large pistol. He grapples up to her and finds out there's one more bomb. He manages to get himself and Quinn out of there, but when he gets out he finds that Rotting is nowhere to be found. Oh my god, he's finally dead! Yes! Hell yes! Come on, he's dead! Oh, hi Rotting. He lived. Cool. Man, as disappointed by this as me and you are, makes a swift exit, much to the dismay of Jimmy G, and that brings our night to an end. Well, that was certainly something. I know what you're wondering, why did Rotting live? Well, you're about to find out. Between man leaving Ham City and his next adventure, nothing really happened. The streets were quiet, the citizens were safe, leaving man on 897 kills. I wish man did something here so I could tell you how cool it was, but he didn't. He just sat at home, played Battlefront 2, and that's about it. Dick began killing over in Bloodhaven, and by this point, Jimmy G's Discord mod daughter is already firmly in her Discord mod era, so nothing happens at all. There's a few street-level thugs who man tries to add to the count, but without the yin to his yang, the clown to his killer, he doesn't really have a punchline. But all that's about to change. We open with the Jonler being cremated. I pressed the button and burned him to death myself. He is dead and won't be making any more appearances in this series. After his death, Cronm takes the throne as Gotham's big good guy. In fact, he's so good he wanted to send everyone who wanted to go onto an all-expenses paid trip to New Hanover, a majestic expanse of land in the American West. The trade-off, though, is that Cronm wants to kill all of the criminals who remain, cementing himself as the best killer in Gotham and outdoing man 10 times over. And tonight, there's only one guy who can stop him. Man himself. Man has donned a new suit for tonight, a more brutal, imposing suit than usual. Tonight, he's out for blood. We go and talk to a now pretty old Jimmy G, who tells us that the GCPD has been tracking an unknown military vehicle speeding through Gotham. But the real work begins when Jimmy G gets a call telling him that a patrol car is missing and an officer is down. Man's ears prick up because he knows where there's innocent people in pain, there's kills for him to gain. So he begins his flight over there. Once there, Man realises there isn't much room for kills, a shame indeed, but he rescues his cop, probably to come back and kill him later, before almost being run down by the unknown military vehicle Gordon told us about. Man ponders for a second. What is he to do? Well, he needs to tip the scales of war and call in the man tank. He gets in the man tank and begins chasing the car down and gets his first kill of the night, killing this criminal who stood in the way of the man tank, before seeing a cop car be blown to bits. And this does bring a smile to his face, but he didn't get the kill, so that happiness turns to rage, as he gets another kill in the background here, which has a nice constellation prize, and eventually he manages to stop the truck before interrogating the driver, who tells him he needs to go to Chinatown. That's where Cronm will be. Man arrives at Cronm's safe house and finds some new victims presented to him in a nice succinct package. He drops down, kills this guy by dropping his entire body weight on him and slamming his head into the floor, before putting 60,000 volts through this guy's body, frying his brain and melting his skull in this light, before finishing the room off chucking a Manarang at the final guy. Man is a tactician, and so there is a reason he left the final light over to the left of the room. Just trust the process. Pamela Plant kills this guard, which is fun, and then tries to kill us. We have to take her back to the GCPD, and on the way back we're told that Gotham is officially at war, and Cronm has launched an all-out tank invasion on the city. So Man, feeling mild fear that these tanks might actually outdo his kill count, heads over there and clears house, taking all of the tanks out before driving Mrs. Plant to her home for the next few hours.
We drop Pammy off and talk to Jimmy G and Money, who begin telling us about other criminals in the city, but they don't really pose a threat to our kill count, so they're never going to be a priority tonight. However, we don't leave the GCPD empty-handed, as we run over to the evidence room and do a little trolling as we steal back our beloved, the rec gun. Oh, how I missed you. We then leave to go and meet Jimmy G's hyper-intelligent Discord mod daughter, who's in the top of the giant clock tower moderating her kittens. And on the way, we grab 2 more kills in the tank. I think this is a good time to say that for the most part, man won't be veering off the road to grab kills in the tank. Obviously, if the opportunity arises to claim a kill, he'll take it, but don't get angry at him for not actively hunting kills in the city, because again, this is more about what we can do in the main campaign. We make it to the Belfry, or whatever it's called. I think it's just called the Clock Tower, which is infinitely less mysterious, and find that Jimmy G's DMD has been trying to figure out what Cronm has been threatening Gotham with, and she comes to the conclusion it's some form of his classic Bhutanese Shadow Garden grown dark evil pack, which makes people see what they fear most. In our case, a world without kills. A world which wouldn't deserve to continue if it came to fruition. Man thinks he can figure out where the Toxin is, and tells Jimmy G he can see Man-Bat from up here, and then heads off to try and find Cronm, but not before committing some public property damage to clear his mind. And while dragging his car up the side of this building, he realises he can use the antenna here to locate Cronm, so he powers it up using the man tank, but realises he needs more antennas because he is gluttonous. Man heads over to the other antenna and finds a cop being held hostage, and finds 5 new victims in the room with the hostage. He lures 2 of them outside and lets them live, before realising he needs to become a darker knight. A knight with more style, more finesse, a man with more G's than a scorpion manoeuvre. Man calls in his new suit, and the man porn begins. Sorry, I couldn't help myself, that guy's actually ruined this scene for me with that critique. It's not even Batman porn, it's just cool. It's like every Batman suit-up scene ever. That's not even a valid criticism. Anyway, man gears up into something a little more otherworldly. Say hello to man's final form, Man Point. This suit has loads of cool features, including but not limited to takedowns which can break the sound barrier and kill on impact, cool red eyes, arm lengthening gliding techniques, and the best of all, Ghul Berettas. Call him Max because he's about to bring the pain. Get it? 'Cause he's using Ghul Berettas, like Max Pet. No one watched that video. Anyway, man heads into the vents and claims his next 3 victims with the newly learned Fear multi-takedown. Man wires the antenna up and eventually figures out Cronm, whose plan is to launch a giant chemical attack on Gotham, is working out of the old chemical plant. Genius detective work from Man as per usual. Man tells Jimmy G and his friends to meet him there so they can go in and talk to Crow together, but as they're discussing the new suit and how cool it is, they're interrupted by a giant helicopter, and in what I can only describe as one of the toughest displays of aura farming I've ever seen from Man, he walks directly up to the giant helicopter and begins staring it down. The helicopter is slightly glitchy though, since it's showing Man in a suit he has never worn before, but from what we can hear, the man in the chopper wants to kill Man, but Cronm doesn't let him, telling him he wants to keep Man alive for the moment he takes over his gargantuan kill count. The helicopter flies away and Man begins being shot at by some of Crow's tanks, but he dodges the bullets using his newly found Speed Force powers granted to him by the new suit. And he tells Jim to stay behind while he sees what all this ruckus in the chemical plant is about, and he uses his newly minted giant grapnel gun to get over to the front door and see what's going on. What he finds is a whole lot of fresh meat for the man grinder, which pleases him greatly. Jimmy G's DMD tells Batman not much is known about the man in the helicopter, but sources all agree on one thing: his name, the Ham Knight. Man begins furrowing his brow and telling DMD to put a message into general chat to ask if anyone knows anything about the Ham Knight, while he goes to rescue some workers who the Ham Knight's army have taken hostage. Man wants to bring the tank with him, so he drops into this control room, claiming 3 victims by way of Fear multi-takedown, shattering all of their bones in record time, before dropping this very heavy light fixture onto the 4th kill of the room, before using his immense physical prowess to pull this lever and bring the Man tank in to kill these other tanks. We next catch up to Man as he adds 3 more kills to his count by using another Fear multi-takedown, before moving this ramp into place for later use. Man now heads to find more victims, and finds a few more on this little island connected to the mainland by pipes, and as he calls in the man tank, it decides it has already had enough of tonight, and so drives itself into the ocean with Man in the cockpit, killing them both. After being fished out of Gotham Bay by Gotham City Coast Guards, Man heads over to find those victims he wanted to get earlier, and when he gets there he shoots one, killing him, before running the next one down for getting in his way. Man then pulls the wall of this building down and finds 3 victims cowering behind it. He kills them for displaying such cowardice. Man finds a worker and decides it would be inhumane to leave him here to die. He's a killer, not a monster. He goes to grab the poor guy and is ambushed by the Ham Knight. The Ham Knight begins complimenting Man's suit and tells his men not to shoot him because the fit is impeccable. However, Man, being the aggressor in almost every situation he's in, decides to kill them. He takes one down with a straight bullet to the chest from the car, before kicking another guy into the path of what I can only assume is a stray bullet from the tank's barrel. He then decides to hop into the tank and shoots the 3 remaining victims, killing them all instantly. Man hears the cries of unclaimed victims, so heads over to the next part of the chemical plant, and finds these guys complaining about Man's skill level. He drops in, drives his first kill of the room's head into this junction box, does the same to the second, and after this dumbass tries to touch the new suit, Man reacts as rationally as possible and drives his body into a wall, almost definitely adding him to the tally before picking up a bat. We should actually give him a new name when he's got a bat in his hand, like, what about Club Man or Baseball Man or the Man Who Bats? I think there's one here that could work, but I just can't think of it. Anyway, Man picks up a bat, counters this thug's attack, throws him 10 feet into the air, and watches with glee as he lands on his head and dies. The last guy does sadly get to live. Man hears more victims underground and decides to check it out, but not before coming across some silent snake poison from Man Origins. He steers clear of this and finds some more dead factory workers, kills stolen from him by the Ham Knight and Cronm. He finds his next batch of victims and uses his newfound speed to kill 3 of them, and only 3 of them. I could have sworn there were environmental takedown opportunities in this room, but I must finally be going insane, because there aren't any, and so we leave with 3 kills, and a very much alive factory worker. Man puts the worker with his friend in the back of the tank and gets jumped by the giant helicopter again. He takes it down in quick fashion, killing the Ham Knight. Oh wait, no, he was controlling it remotely. How annoying. Anyway, on Man's way out of the chemical plant, he finds 5 more victims to claim. He gets 2 with a fear multi-takedown, 1 by smashing his head into the ground at the speed of sound, and sadly has to let the last 2 live, as after some experimenting, I discovered Man can't do ledge takedowns in this game. Why? Who knows, it's a mystery for another day, and I don't know how after 10 years of playing this game, I've only just realised they removed ledge takedowns. Man drops his 2 new allies off with Jimmy G and heads back in to find Cronm in the central mixing chamber. Once Man does a little more mind-clearing public property damage, he finds 2 guards who themselves are being guarded by a smaller, less mobile guard. Man unleashes the power of space and time on them and adds them to the count before disabling the less talkative of the trio. In this next section, we can really add to Man's count as there are 20 enemies here to be added, and don't worry, all of them are added. Man opens the gates and takes a huge portion of them out with the Man tank, 12 of them to be exact, before the remaining 8 cower behind in the room the Man tank can't access, so Man goes in on foot, lures 4 of them out and kills them, before adding another kill via stray bullet, another kill by dropping this light on this guy's head, and the penultimate kill is added via junction box, with the final kill coming when Man uses this wall fan as a battering ram. Man finds Cronm cooking up some of that dark evil pack and so has to stop him. He takes 2 guards out with Fear Takedown, adding them to the count, before returning to the old ways, blowing a weak wall out onto an unsuspecting guard, killing him. He then knocks out this guard and uses him as bait, placing explosive gel under his body to be detonated when his friends come to revive him, killing them both in the process, and just like that we had 2 more kills to the tally, before adding 1 more using the same method, sending this guy into some sort of seizure state as he dies. That leaves us with 2 guards. One is blown up with explosive gel, and despite Man's best efforts, the final guard just wouldn't die via explosion, so Man smashes his ribs with his fists and leaves him on the floor. Man then goes to confront Cronm and smashes his head into this control panel, despite Crow clearly surrendering, which, according to Amnesty.com and the Metropolitan Police, is in fact a war crime, which I think means if I had a penny for every time Man breaches international laws surrounding human rights during warfare, I'd have 2 pennies, which isn't much, but it's weird it's happened twice in one series. Cronm tells Man he's discovered DMD's IP address and has sent one of the Ham Knight soldiers to go and kidnap her. Man throws Crow aside and begins to warn her about the looming threat of kidnap, but when he turns around, Crow has escaped, leaving Man to contain the blast of the bomb Crow built, which if detonated would cover the entire eastern seaboard in his Bhutanese Shadow Garden Grown Dark Evil pack, which would spell death for anyone involved, and Man wouldn't be able to claim a single kill. Man puts his chemistry degree to work and cooks up some of that neutralising agent and begins putting it into Crow's formula to make the blast radius stop before it can really get going. Fred begs Man to leave. If he doesn't leave soon, he will die and Gotham will be killed by someone much kinder than Man. Man continues, dedicated to the cause, before when putting the final batch of the neutralising agent in the mixture, he turns around and oh fuck. So you know when I said we'd never be seeing Jonler again? Well, it seems Man secretly imported Jonler's consciousness into his mind after he killed him in case of emergencies like this. We get some actual story here as we play as Jimmy G for the first time in the Man-Ham series and see a truly terrifying sight. Gotham in daylight. God, that just looks so weird. I've been watching this footage back, this is so weird. I also like how half the sky's black and half of it's bright. Two-Face reference. Anyway, we find out Man has kidnapped 4 people who Jonler managed to get inside before he died, and now they're becoming Jonler. These are the Jonler variants. But Jimmy G points out the fact there's 5 cells and only 4 Jonlers. An astute observation, but he fails to recognise that the final Jonler is really the friend we made along the way. No, seriously, the final Jonler is actually a friend he made along the way. It's Man. We cut back to Man, and he is now officially the man who jonkles, as he escapes the exploding chemical plant. Man talks to Fred and tells him he's okay, but Fred becomes Jonler, and then Jimmy G. Anyway, Man heads back to the GCPD and tells Jimmy G his Discord mod daughter has been taken from the clock tower. Jimmy G loses his mind and tells us we need to go and find her now, so Man follows him to the clock tower, but on their way they're intercepted by 2 militia vehicles, one of which is blown up so we can safely assume they are dead and add 3 more kills to the count. And the second vehicle is blown up and thrown into the water in arguably our most definitive kill of the series so far, so we'll add 3 more kills to the count for this because holy lord above, they are absolutely double dead. We take Jimmy G to the clock tower and find it being surrounded by tanks, which we promptly deal with because we're really good at this game. It's here we get our next real batch of kills though, as we shoot this guy from inside the tank, killing him, add these 2 to the count via fear multi-takedown, and get our final kill by throwing this fan at this man's cranium. We get into the clock tower and eventually reveal to Jimmy G that his daughter, whose real name is actually Bra, spelt with a H, and not Jimmy G's Discord mod daughter, has been working for Man this whole time. And Jimmy G, clearly threatened by our fathering abilities compared to his own, takes his anger out on us, landing a swift hook to our jaw. It's worth noting that in the effort of not weakening Man, that he allowed Jimmy G to land this punch, and if he really wanted to he could have killed him before he knew what was going on, but he quite likes him so we let him live. Tensions are a bit high, so we decide the best way to cheer ourselves up is to begin doom scrolling on Instagram Reels, and whilst watching these Reels we accidentally find the Ham Knight bundling Bra into the back of his car. We hop into the tank and begin tracking the tyre tracks and eventually hit a wall, however that we can bring down, not by brute force but by finesse and a button press. Man finds the button he needs to press to bring the bridge down so he can track Bra down in the big train terminal building. Man heads over there and finds some victims. He grabs 2 kills by way of fear multi-takedown, and for the first time in this outing, he gets a good old-fashioned delayed inverted takedown, before remembering how good they are and using another one on this guy, and this guy, and this guy, before finishing this section off by dropping his body weight onto this guy's skull, crushing it and killing him. Man hacks into the bridge controls and can bring them down when he's back at the Man tank, but it's here we find out the puzzler has taken my wife hostage, which really annoyed me. We head over there and fight some of the puzzler's henchmen and almost rescue Selena, but can't because she's a side mission and we don't do those around here, so we have to leave her behind. Man gets back to the car and tracks the Ham Knight's vehicle, where he finds it's crashed and neither Bra nor Ham are anywhere to be found. In response to this awful discovery, we hack into the Ham Knight's Discord server and find he's broadcasting from his underground Ham tunnel. Once inside, we have to do some more public property damage to calm ourselves down. But then we get a video from our son that we hate, who asks us if Bra is okay. We lie to his face and tell him she's fine because we don't respect him. Jonler praises our ability to disregard our child's feelings, and continues to make fun of us as we track the Ham Knight. He also tells us that we're an awful person, which is right, we are. After doing some light espionage and breaking into the room where the Ham Knight last spoke to us, we get jumped and Man gets shot, which is a shame. The Ham Knight seems to know a lot about Man, which is strange. It's not like he's going to end up being like Cassandra Cain or anything. I don't know how he could possibly know all this information, because again, it's not like he knows Man personally, but he does. He sends in some fodder for us to dispose of as he begins escaping from our killer grasp. In our infinite rage, we grab a kill on this brute before getting another by dropping this light on this guy's head, and another by putting this ninja's head through this junction botch, which definitely fried his brain. And our final 2 kills in this room come by way of environmental takedowns, as we use this fan to kill the final 2 men we do kill in this room. After clearing the room out, we escape it and begin chasing the Ham Knight down, taking out his security force, so we'll add another 3 kills to the count. We eventually catch him, and by catch him, I mean blow the car he was in to the moon using our rockets, and jam his head under a tyre. However, when the car comes to a rest, we get out and the driver crawls out, and it isn't the Ham Knight. It's one of his friends pretending to be him using a voice changer. In response to this clear attempt to bamboozle us by the Ham Knight, we decide it's best to grab his friend, stick his head under the front tyre of the man tank, and hold the accelerator to try and kill him. It doesn't work. Militia uniforms are actually impervious to specifically having their head run over while being interrogated for the whereabouts of the Ham Knight. After we torture this victim enough, we eventually... Wait, I just realised the tyre treads on the tyre are actually the bat symbol. Huh, that's kind of cool. Anyway, we drop our armoured knee on this guy's head, definitely killing him after he was weakened by the bat tank, and Fred tells us that Dick, our son that we do like, has got a lead he wants to share with us, and we need to meet him on the Zooey Mama ferry terminal roof. We head over there and meet Dick, who tells us he wants to help us out, but as much as we like him, we essentially tell him to die. Dick says no, and we just give up and let him hang around because we need to conserve energy for kills. Dick hands us a gun. Oh my god, I've been waiting for this moment all night. We can finally shoot to kit. Oh, it's a disruptor. Again. Right. Okay, then why do we never get a gun that kills people? The victims below us work for the Wizard of Cobb, and Dick tells us he's smuggling weapons into the city, but we don't really give a shit. We also sell big time and don't get any kills here. I did try and restart from the checkpoint, but, well, we were at the checkpoint, so this was essentially a layup that I missed, and we miss out on like 3 really easy kills here, which is a shame, but the night is darkest just before the dawn, and we'll make up for this lapse in judgment later. We scare these dudes away and follow them to the Wizard of Cobb's palace. Once we get there, we find a few new victims, and after the previous waste of kills, Man is angry and begins by grabbing 2 kills with the Fear Takedown, before causing this unfortunate soul to... commit suicide. Unlucky. Once inside Cobb's palace, Man is captured by Cobb's men, but is saved by none other than Dick, who throws his classic dick stick at this guy's head before we break out of our captor's grasp and begin grabbing more kills. Our first comes from this fan to the head, our second comes from another fan to the head, the third comes from 40,000 volts to the head, the fourth comes from, you guessed it, fan to the head, and then I guess since we set this up, the fifth comes by way of Dick, as we throw this guy into the air and Dick kicks him into next week. We destroy Penguin's gambling winnings and make our way outside. Once out in the open air, we find ourselves pinned down by these ham soldiers. Man doesn't enjoy this and suffers from claustrophobia, so instead of just asking for them to let him go, he calls the man tank and wipes these 5 guys off the map, slinging tank cannon rounds at them like it's the Battle of Kursk. Man leaves and Fred tells him to investigate the 2 airships which have appeared moored off the coast of Gotham. Man knows how harmful these ships can be when left unchecked, so has to head over there to check their health and safety parameters, and see if they conform to the May 6, 1937 Airship Conservation Act. Man heads over there and finds some of the Ham Knight's soldiers, and he knows what must be done. Man kills 2 of them by Fear Takedown and gets another kill by jamming the barrel of this guy's gun, Reacher style. Man then finds out he can get into the ship by hacking their doors, the first sign of their clear non-conformity to the May 6, 1937 Airship Conservation Act. Once inside, he's able to hack some of the Ham Knight's equipment and uses it to kill 3 of them, electrocuting them to death. Man is then able to pretty easily hack into the mainframe and control the airship from his phone, again going against the May 6, 1937 Airship Conservation Act. Man finds an old man being beaten down by Ham Knight soldiers, so he swoops in to join them, but they don't like that he has more drip than them, so they begin fighting him, causing Man to add more of them to his list, killing the first one by driving his body into this spotlight, the second by jamming his head into a junction box, and the third by quite literally and quite brutally jamming this poor guy's head into the spotlight while snapping his C1 vertebrae in the process. After beating these thugs into submission for later killing, Man talks to the old man, and it turns out he owns these airships. Man begins telling him about the multiple breaches of the May 6th, 1937 Airship Conservation Act, but he morphs into Joker, and then all of a sudden Man has to fight all of these ruthless jonklers who begin getting up and looking at him all funny, and Man, in this rage-filled state, kills these jonklers, but they probably aren't real, so they aren't added to the count. I will directly contradict this rule later, but fuck you, it's Man's last outing and I can do what I want. When we come around, we find that the old man has been taken by the Ham Knight's less health and safety concerned soldiers, who have kidnapped him and dragged him over to the other airship. Man has to disable the guns on the side of the airship before he can head over there to continue his lecture about the Airship Conservation Act, so he heads into a giant room full of chimps and victims. Man needs to access the old man's computer, and so has to clear the Ham Knight's men out. He doesn't want to get his hands dirty, so remotely blows the first thug up. He then steals download codes from this soldier's phone and uses them to electrocute the second victim of this room. Kills 3 and 4 come when Man drops onto these unsuspecting morons and drives their organs into paste at the speed of light, and kill 5 comes when Man makes this guy blow himself up like a dumbass. There was a slight wait for kill 6, but it came when Man, outnumbered and out of viable options, used his immense genius to place explosive gel here, killing this man and knocking the other down. And then, in one of the funniest kills I've ever seen, Man drags this guy towards him using the claw, uses his own momentum against him, and flings him down a flight of stairs onto a railing where he definitely broke his skull open and died. Man manages to reconstruct the old guy's fingerprints after reviewing footage that shows the Ham Knight trying to give him the same lecture Man was trying to give him. See, if they could only be friends, the Ham Knight could be Man's new Robin. With stolen fingerprints in hand, Man shoots the guns off the other airship, allowing easy access to find the old man. On his way back to where he'll jump to the other ship, he runs into this group of evil victims, but sadly can't claim any of them because he's just too excited by the fact that he'll soon be able to give his lecture. Man opens the bay doors and jumps from one airship to the other, and on his way kills 2 of the soldiers with the ever-faithful and ever-lethal ceiling light fixture. He then finds the old man but is faced with 10 more victims to add to the count. Does he get them all? No, he doesn't, but he does get a few, and here's how. He gets the first with remote explosion, the second and third with a fear multi-takedown, the fourth with another remote explosion, the fifth with yet another remote explosion. These are quickly becoming Man's favourite toy, evident by the fact that he also uses it to get his 6th kill. He gets his 7th with a glide kick into a metal railing, and this guy just, well, dies. Man then rage baits this guy into killing himself, adding his 8th kill to the count, and that brings this room to an end with the final 2 soldiers being allowed to live. Man gets to finally talk to the old man, who says that not only has he been breaching the May 6, 1937 Airship Conservation Act, but he's also been helping Cronm build a giant Bhutanese Shadow Garden Grown Dark Evil Pack dispersal device, which, if detonated, will engulf the whole city. The old man then tells Man that Cronm is in the next room, cooking up his device, so Man reads him the lecture and knocks him out for his improper safety practices. Man heads to find Cronm and finds there are in fact 2 of them. Man tries to take one down and picks the fake one, leading to being injected with that Bhutanese Shadow Garden Grown Dark Evil Pack, which sends Man into a killing frenzy, combining his strength with the Jonkler's insanity. Man beats these soldiers down and continues to beat them up even after surrendering. And I'm not talking a few slaps or a punch, I mean he actually beats them to death and once again commits a war crime. Gotham is at war with the Ham Knight, Man sees soldiers surrendering and still decides to beat them to death, and I will be counting them onto the count for that reason, so let's stick another 5 on there. Man then really loses it. He really gives in to his desires here, and after being egged on by an army of jonklers, he finds a revolver in his hand, he pulls the trigger, and kills Cronm for good. Our first kill with a gun. This is a truly monumental moment, and we will be adding it to the count because it's the only time we see Man use a gun in the series. So for the culture, even though it doesn't actually kill anyone, it's going on the count. Cronm begins escaping and actually does as his giant helicopter rips the front of the airship off as he escapes on his Bhutanese dispersal device. He escapes and then the Ham Knight appears, firing 2 rockets at Man which knock him down for a few seconds. He regains his footing and gets a video message from Cronm that tells him Bruh, spelt with a H, is actually in the same safe house we rescued our green friend from earlier. We head over there and find her in her chair, and she gets a hit of the Bhutanese Shadow Garden Grown Dark Evil pack and begins tweaking, firing at the glass with a gun like she can actually hit us through this. Silly woman, oh my god, she just shot herself. The Ham Asylum, the Ham City, the Ham Origins, and now Ham Knight. She will be missed, but we can't stop our rampage just because we inadvertently forced one of our closest allies and our son's fiancée to kill herself. No, we need to go and see if our green friend back in the GCPD will help us, because her plants are very strong and will be able to combat Cronm's Bhutanese Shadow-Grown Dark Evil Pack dispersal device. Man heads back to the GCPD and grabs Pammy out of a cell, and after leaving the GCPD, encounters the Ham Knight's new weapon, a Cobra tank. These big boys are actually pretty useless, as they have a glaring flaw, the giant target on their back. Man blows the tank up and begins trying to find where Ivy's plant is located. He finds it using his underground sonar and it begins growing, ready to protect the city. The Ham Knight soldiers see the plant and think it ruins the Gotham skyline, so begin heading to try and chop it down. But little do they know, Man has a green thumb. He glides over to them and rams 2 of their heads into these spotlights, adding 2 more kills to the count. Man then decides to go and see if he can find where the Bhutanese dispersal device is hidden. This, however, does mean going to see that our son that we hate, but Man tries to deploy the Man Wing to track it, and a set of missile launchers won't allow the Man Wing in. But as we're formulating our plan, our son that we hate asks where his girlfriend is. We again lie to his face and tell her she's fine because we don't respect this bum. And as Man delivers the good news to his son, he finds a weakness he can exploit in the Ham Knight's current stronghold on Founders Island, a drone which acts as a relay. So if Man can get his hands on the drone, he can figure out how to dismantle the fortress. He gets to the drone, destroys it, and finds himself really not enjoying the presence of a long-range missile launcher that the Ham Knight has set up to stop the Man Wing from finding the Bhutanese dispersal device. So he heads over to destroy it, but it's guarded. Great, more kills. Man breaks through this glass roof and smashes this man's head into the floor with the force of an angry gorilla to claim his first kill. He then sneaks up behind this guy and instead of using a silent takedown, grabs his gun and smashes his head in with the butt of it, which I am counting as a kill. The third kill comes from Man's newfound love for remote explosives when he catches this guy in his trap and murders him, before claiming 2 more kills with a fear multi-takedown here. He's then able to begin killing the rocket launcher, but is interrupted by the Ham Knight, who finds himself stuck in a room with a stone cold killer, as Man drops from the vents and gets 3 kills via fear takedown, before finally getting his hands on the Ham Knight, who gets scared and leaves his men behind to die. Man claims this big boy's life by using the old smash and grab technique, and by that I mean he smashes his head through the light and stands there until enough faults have passed through it enough to kill him. And the same goes for the next kill, but he's just smashed into another light and killed, before the final kill of this room comes from this junction box being in close vicinity to this man's brain. Man is finally able to kill the missile launcher using the tank and thus is able to send the Man Wing around Gotham to find the Bhutanese dispersal device. He then heads back to the clock tower and looks at the results of the scan, but it comes back empty, unlike his inbox, which is now being filled by Joseph Quinn from the hit TV show Dexter. Wait, what? I just assumed they were the same person. Huh, okay, apparently this is Harry Quinn, and Harry has taken over the movie studios to try and steal the 4 remaining Jonklers. We head over there and remember on the way that our bitch boy's son is there, so I guess we do have to try and save him too. Once we arrive, Man jams this fool's head into this electric box, killing him, before getting his next 2 kills with the good old remote explosive hacks, a favourite of Man's tonight. Man then tries to get into the studios but is stopped and subsequently ambushed by a few of Harry Quinn's men who have come armed and dangerous. The first of these 11 available kills comes when Man tricks this brute into touching the ammo box of infinite electrical current, which vaporizes his internal organs instantly, and you get 10 points if you guess where the next kill came from. If you said remote explosion, you are correct. Man's next 3 kills come from a fear takedown, and I assumed we'd only get 2 kills here, but a third walked around the corner right on cue, setting himself up to die. His next kill comes from an unexpected turn of events as Man tries to silently take down this guy, drops a smoke pellet instead, drops down behind the victim and throws him at the speed of light against this wall, shattering his ribs and puncturing his lung, killing him. His next 2 kills come in rapid fashion, one being by way of electrocution through a rigged ammo box, and the next comes about 3 seconds later through generator explosion. Man heads inside, and since he's in an elevator, begins having flashbacks to the Asylum, remembering where all of this madness began, remembering the huge kill count he racked up there and laughing at the thought of it. Once he gets inside, he finds his son that he hates because he's balding at the age of 25, fighting off a load of Harry Quinn's thugs, but since he wants more kills, he can't help but get involved. Since his last appearance, Man's son's hair has grown, and he swapped to a much more visually pleasing outfit, so we won't be making fun of him anymore, and we'll call him by his full name, Dim Trake. We jump in to help Dim out, and get 4 kills with a fear takedown before getting the 5th with this electrical box. Our final kill of this room is classic Man, beating an enemy into submission but picking him back up, swinging him around and throwing his head into 40,000 volts of electricity. Man and Dim then begin interrogating the final thug, who they decide to spare for his information. The dynamic duo deduce the 3 escaped Jonler variants are in 3 parts of the movie studios, and decide to head after the female Jonler first. Our duo of dimwits find a group of thugs, and Man drops a light on one of their heads and throws another into the spotlight just to prove a point, adding 2 more kills to the count. Once they find the female Jonler, they also find a batch of new victims for the taking. Dim is left out of these sections because although Man may now respect him, we don't. Man sneaks up on this guy and knockout smashes him at the speed of sound. Seriously, this footage is not sped up, so do we count it as a kill? I mean, he was punched in the back of the skull at 400 miles an hour, so... oh, go on then, it's the finale, isn't it? Man then grabs 3 kills via fear takedown before finally, after so long, grabbing another delayed inverted takedown kill. This was quite satisfying, so I don't feel like we got many of these in this game. We then apprehend female Jonler after she tries to win a duo's final circle battle with her friend against the Dark Knight and Bird Boy. Man goes off to find the big Jonler and manages to grab 4 kills on the way via fear takedown. He then has a vision of the old Robin who he did respect, Todrick, stuck in a wheelchair, which is strange because when Man knew him he wasn't disabled. Jonler appears and begins taunting Todrick that Man has found a new son, Dim. Naturally, Todrick isn't very happy about this because even he doesn't respect Dim, and since Joker is one of the few people who does, he begins beating him to death, another sign of Jonler's insanity. Long story short, Man and Dim beat the big Jonler down over time and get a combined 0 kills together, and despite my best efforts to get the big Jonler to hit the littler Jonlers, it didn't work, so we leave here empty and we force Dim, who we still don't have much respect for, to lift the big Jonler back to his cell. Man then heads to find the 3rd and final Jonler variant, Johnny Clare. Johnny Clare is hidden away, waiting to serenade us with his dulcet tones, and on the way to find him we come across this big boy who we decide deserves to die by way of blunt force trauma to the head. Spoiler alert, we don't get any kills for the remainder of our time in the movie studio, much to our disappointment, rendering this segment useless. So let's run through some story, shall we? Basically, Man and Dim beat Johnny Clare after he tried to kill himself, something we simply couldn't allow, so we take him out for later killing. When we begin heading back to the cells to round up our escaped Jonler variants, we manage to take Harry down, who seems to be rather caked. Then we get back to the cells and find out Henry, the oldest of the Jonlers, is also the evilest of the Jonlers. Harry gets a bit turned on by the serious DILF energy coming off of the oldest Jonler, but he notices Man is the man who jonkles, and he just cannot handle the level of aura that Man radiates, and thus kills himself. He doesn't unalive himself, he fucking kills himself, leaving Harry stunned, Man shunned, and the other Jokers gunned. Dim finally gets the hint and realises that Man isn't in danger, he is the danger, and so Man decides it's time to lock himself away. What? Why? Man, you still have so much. Get fucked, Dim, you waste of space. See you next time. After locking Dim away for wearing a wig and trying to impress us with a new outfit, we break him even more by telling him Bra is dead. Unlucky Dim. We then realise something. The Ham Knight has all of the main characters in this game in his Life 360 circle, which means he knows where Pammy is, and when he finds her, he'll probably kill her or something. So we head over there to try and save Ivy, but as we begin talking her into our back seat, we get an alert from Fred. The Ham Knight has been found, and he's just detonated the Bhutanese dispersal device. Gotham is covered. Welcome to the city of Bhutanese shadow-grown dark evil pack. Man realises Pammy's singular plant won't be enough to combat this dark pack, and to find another plant he needs to use the tank, and to use the tank he needs a power cell that wasn't wiped out by the dispersal device. That power cell can be found in those airships we went to inspect earlier, and when we arrive, gliding all the way over the Dark Evil Pack city, we find 8 armed men waiting to be killed. Man's first 2 kills come by Fear multi-takedown, and well, he just doesn't get any more. I'm not sure what was going on with Man here, maybe he just decided to not kill anyone out of kindness, very strange, but at least the old man gives us the correct power cell for the tank, which will lead to more kills in the future, so I prefer to think of this as an investment. We head back to the car and begin attaching the new cell, which makes the Man tank drivable in Botany's shadow-grown Dark Evil Pack infested areas. Man equips it and finds Pammy's other plant. It grows, sprouts, and becomes another addition to the Gotham skyline, but there aren't any kills for like half an hour. It's just tank fights for so long. But anyway, after protecting Pammy's plant from a Ham Knight assault, it begins taking fat rips of that Botany's shadow-grown Dark Evil Pack from the atmosphere. The Ham Knight then challenges us to a duel. We win obviously and rip that sorry sack of meat from his fancy tank before beating his face in, brutally laying in punches until, much like in the city, the person we're punching turns into the Jonler, escaping from our grasp in the process. We head back to give Pammy some words of encouragement to get this Botany shadow-grown Dark Evil Pack out of the sky, and she does just that, killing herself in the process. We were there in the beginning, and we were there at her end. Thank you, Pammy Plant. Your sacrifice has not gone unnoticed. After saving Gotham from the evil pack, we get a call telling us Jimmy G is using encrypted channels to make contact with us, so we go to help him. We find him surrounded by Ham Knight soldiers. He has been gymnapped. After some mental warfare, we manage to trick these buffoons into fighting our man tank, and obviously this doesn't go well. After some tomfoolery on the game's behalf, I think we racked up about 20 kills, a good way for the game to make up for its lack of kills for the last 40 minutes. On our way down the rabbit hole, we get a nice gift, 4 kills with the tank to be exact. Man then uses the ret gun to shock these dudes to death, putting another 4 kills on the count. Eventually, we come across this room of Ham Knight soldiers doing mandatory suicide vest training, where they'll be trained how to effectively kill themselves. But Man doesn't stand for suicide, finding it to be a cowardly way to escape his murderous grasp, so he takes it upon himself to hit the head of the suicide vest division with a mean scorpion death drop. He then takes it upon himself to teach a few lessons on how to die like a man, cutting the light onto this man's head, putting his lights out, ironically enough, smashing this coward through a light and putting him through electrical torture before he finally dies, and the final kill comes from throwing this man into 40,000 volts, killing him almost instantly. After clearing the rest of the room, Man heads deeper down the hole and finds himself face to face with the Ham Knight. Well, it's more like tank barrel to giant 25-foot grinding machine, but alas, here we are. We lure the Ham Knight through tunnels pre-rigged with enough explosives to bring a developed nation to its knees. However, the Ham Knight is strong, and after we escape his attempts to crush our tank, he reveals he knows we are Bruce Man under the mask, and then crushes the tank anyway. We finally find Jimmy G, but he's surrounded by Ham Knight guards. We jump out of the vent and begin cracking skulls. Our first kills come from the 5th takedown, as we decimate 3 guys' bodies in lightning quick fashion. We then got pretty creative for our next kills here, luring the core of the enemy pool down the escalator right into the explosive generator that we obviously detonate. We get 5 kills here, and despite Man getting the final kill cam, 2 more enemies oppose our will to kill, and so we dispose of them. Sadly, we don't get any kills despite my best efforts, but we need to move on from this tragic display. We begin rescuing Jimmy G and get jumped by the Ham Knight. The Ham Knight tells us he is sick of our reign of terror and will kill us, but Man is still confused as to who's behind the mask. The Ham Knight lifts his mask, and it's Todrick, the second Robin. Todrick begins telling us about the time we left him to be beaten, shot, gassed, drugged, stabbed, blown up, hung, and basically beaten half to death by the Jonler, and since we don't really respect the current Robin, we decide to try and give him his old job back with increased wages, better sick pay, and more paid overtime. However, he doesn't want his job back and prefers being the Ham Knight, and during contract negotiations, we begin fighting Todrick. While trying to give Todrick his old job back, we manage to pick up 2 kills in the second phase of the fight. In the third phase, after pleading to Todrick's family-orientated lifestyle and receiving what I felt was a pretty personal insult from the former Ham Knight.
Use your eyes, fat man. You remember how.
We pick up a kill using the classic delayed inverted takedown before blowing another guy up using a generator. We finally beat Todrick, ripping his armour to reveal his old Robin outfit, which he hates, but he still is not interested in our job, and by the time we tell Fred that Todrick is in fact alive, he's gone to... where exactly? Well, no one knows, but he's gone. We then rescue Jimmy G, and after this thug gets our revenge from his earlier slap on us, we finally get to meet Cronm again. Cronm tells us that he has won and Jimmy G agrees, but only when Cronm reveals that Bra is still alive, turning his gun on Man to try and join the right side of history. Jimmy G shoots Man, but when we see he shoots Man in the chest plate, we know what he's doing. He's getting us off the roof so we can continue to kill, but before we can get any more kills we need to stock our HR department, so we save Bra after she's thrown off the roof by Cronm before Jimmy G is kidnapped again. We take Bra back to the GCPD in our new man tank delivered to us by Kamatos so we can keep killing and find some of the Ham Knights. Well, okay, I guess they're Cronms now. So we find some of the Cronm soldiers ripping the clock tower apart and we don't appreciate this, so we head over there and put a stop to it. We pull up and get 2 kills right off the bat with the tank's cannon, killing the 2 snipers pretty quickly and pretty brutally, before heading onto the roof and getting our last kill with an explosive generator. We head back to the GCPD and find that it's under attack by Cronm's forces. They want to kill the cops inside, but unfortunately for them, we want to kill them more, and kill them we do. Using the tank, we kill 17 by my count, improving our body count massively, but this is far from the end of our killing spree as we engage in our final bit of tank-based combat in this 60v1 deathmatch, which we win in very convincing fashion. Seriously, I was quite impressed with how well this went. Getting a combo that big in a tank fight's no easy feat, and I'm just waffling now, so you have to watch the gameplay. It's really good, and I'm very proud of myself. I'm also going to start talking slower now to make sure I don't have to speed this up too much. You should also subscribe, because I make good videos sometimes. Some of them aren't very good, but people tell me they are, so you should subscribe and see what you think. Anyway, we get to the roof, and with some help from Bra's hyper-quick hacking skills, we get some more kills. The first comes when we electrocute this guy to death, which is followed by what I can only assume is either very hot or very cold gas to the entire body of this poor guy, leaving him either burned or frozen to death in record time. Cronm sends more men after us, but in very similar fashion to before. The first is electrocuted to death against this fence, before the second is then either burned or frozen to death in rapid fashion. It doesn't matter, they're dead anyway. The next and final kill comes from a definite frozen kill, as Man sets Bra up to mercilessly freeze this man's organs together. Man then finds himself on the phone with Cronm, being told that his son who he hates has been kidnapped. Man doesn't care and goes off to complete side content. Okay, no, he has to go and save Jimmy G at the very least, and to do that he has to turn himself into Cronm. He heads to a warehouse, takes his utility belt off and puts himself in the back of a van, which is headed to God knows where. As Man says his farewells to his trusty utility belt, leaving it behind in the warehouse, a car smacks into the side of the van, saving Man, but spitting him out in Crime Alley, the place where it all began. Man is jumped by hundreds of jonklers, and since this is the finale, we're going to count them all. And this will go for any kill that Man or the jonkler gets in Man's head from here on out, real or not. Why? Because again, it's the finale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in one of the most satisfying kills of the series, Man wraps his hands around Jonkler's neck, wrenches, and finally kills him. This is where we snap back to reality, and in an ironic twist of fate, find ourselves heading towards Arkham Island, in a shot-for-shot remake of our first visit to the Asylum with Man all those years ago. Once we're there, we find ourselves strapped to a gurney, Cronm in complete control. He makes us look at Dim and Jimmy G as he taunts us. He's won. He then makes Jimmy G unmask Man in front of a camera, the world watching in anticipation to see who Man really is. It's Bruce Man. Cronm injects Bruce Man with the Botanical Shadow-Grown Dark Evil pack, and we find ourselves in Jonkler's shoes, being kidnapped by the Puzzler, the Wizard of Cobb, Face, and Chiller Croc. Joker uses the oldest trick in the book, calling in the tank to do his dirty business as it drives in and hits Croc at 100 miles an hour square in the ribs, killing him, before wiping out the onlooking crowd, all 100 of them. We're taking Face's word for it here that there are 100, but I believe him, even though when I counted I got closer to 65, but even if he is a bit two-faced, we'll believe him. Jonler, after getting the highest single kill count in the series in one segment, jumps out of the Jonk tank and begins hunting his captors. He begins by shooting the Wizard of Cobb, adding him to the count, before killing the Puzzler and his hostage in one of the most deserved deaths of the series, and finishes off by killing Face. We then head through the combined mind of Man and Jonler and witness horrors beyond human comprehension. A creepy horror game section we can't win. After Man is injected with enough Bhutanese shadow-grown dark evil pack, he grows tired of fear, conquering fear itself as he eventually gets his hands on Jonler, doing what he should have done years ago, beating him to a bloody pulp before finally putting an end to him, throwing him in a cell where he'll be left in the dark corners of Man's mind forever, telling Jonler that he is vengeance, he is the night, he is Man. Adding our final, more spiritual kill to our count. Man tells Cronm he isn't afraid of him, as he's saved by none other than Todrick, who finally took his old job back. Well, kind of, but we'll find out what he does later on down the line. Man breaks out, injects Cronm with his own dark evil pack as Jimmy G lands the final, satisfying punch on Cronm, bringing the night and Man as we know him to an end. The world knows Man is Bruce Man. Gotham now needs something worse, something less human, to protect her. This is how it happened. This is how Man died. What a finale for Man's main campaign life. He was reduced to dealing with D-list villains like Dick in Blackfire and that Dickstroke guy after this, but his impact will never be forgotten, and neither will his and the Man family's kill count of 1,269. This isn't quite the end though, but for now let's lay down our murderous rage and focus on something else. The big news here is obviously that Todrick wanted his old job back, and judging by his last minute heroics in the halls of the place he was tortured for months, he's probably got it back. Being tortured by the Jonler for months on end can't be a fun experience, so it's no wonder he went off the deep end and began trying to outdo his former teacher's kill count. But following the end of the story, he began saving lives, trying to make a difference, saving the killing for the other Bat Babies, and after saving White Arachnid, Cock King and Happy Hatter, Todrick, now operating under the guise of the Ham Knight, a play on his former name, begins trying to hunt and save Crack Mask, an old target of Man's turned a new target of the love and affection of Todrick. So we open with the Ham Knight greeting these fellas who seem to be getting up to no good. Ham Knight decides they shouldn't be doing this and takes it upon himself to stop them. There are 9 enemies here and thankfully we don't hurt a single one of them. My strategy was to just beat them into submission without using any takedowns because all of them involve brutal and quick murder, and so we just bounce between enemies, taking them down very non-lethally. I believe these enemies were thankful following Ham Knight's intervention. Now they can be reformed and saved by the American justice system. 6 enemies then hear the battle and come to see what's going on, but they're quickly dispatched, punched, kicked and hugged into submission, while their families and friends call Ham Knight to thank him for his public service. I'm going to let you all in on a little behind the scenes secret here. His name was originally going to be Red Good, but I started the DLC and had the Ham Knight suit equipped and quite frankly just forgot about Red Good, so that's how we ended up with the Ham Knight. 6 more enemies want to be saved by Ham Knight's kind words and so burst in the room and find their friends already saved. They try and fast track their salvation, but Ham Knight doesn't like to mess with perfection and so tries to do his best to draw this out. He beats them all down with hugs, kisses and kind words, adding them to his save count, and this brings it to a pretty nice 20. He then swaps to his Red Good gear to ask this man where the rest of his friends are, and since Red Good is even nicer than the Ham Knight, the kind sir informs Todrick of his friends' locations, in the rainiest dock in the whole of Gotham City. Ham Knight thanks the kind man and leaves him to revel in his newfound appreciation for life, and heads to the docks. Ham Knight arrives and finds some guys wearing kindness-proof armour, which isn't ideal but they'll come round eventually. Ham Knight had a few failed attempts at this, since he sometimes forgets who he is now, and how the torture at the hands of the Jonler doesn't define him, but after remembering who he was able to work his way through this section pretty well. His first save comes when Ham Knight decides to give the first thug a nice warm embrace. He then lightly strokes his forehead with the butt of his gun, which doesn't kill him, it rather incapacitates him and implants happy thoughts in his head. The second save comes when Ham Knight spots this evildoer wielding a high-powered sniper rifle, so he goes and taps him. him, in just the right spot to knock him out for a little bit while he reflects on his actions. This would become the new strategy, since, like we mentioned before, Ham Knight's movesets usually consist of lethal and swift blows to the head, and bullets to the head, which obviously does kill. The third save comes when Ham Knight drops through this ceiling by accident, but safely lands on the guy below him, shifting his body weight at just the right time to avoid any serious injuries. The fourth save came when he uses the same tactic as before, lightly tapping pressure points on the thug's body to knock him out quickly and easily. The same fate awaits the next saves, but with the Ham Knight making sure everyone is okay, everyone walked out pretty much unscathed. Hello, it's Editing Charlie here. So I couldn't think of a way to fit all the footage of the Ham Knight getting these saves into the video naturally, so I'm doing this really abrupt intermission to put the footage here in like 400% speed, because I don't want anyone to think that I was cheating. It wouldn't work, it just wouldn't work. I tried to fit it all in, and it just didn't work. So, here's the footage. Skip if you want, if you believe me. You should never believe me, though. I'm a liar. I'm not really. Please don't take that at face value. But yeah, no, this is the footage of him getting all the kills. Saves, sorry, wrong series. One unfortunate thug, though, has to be dropped onto, but thankfully it wasn't a very high drop, and since the Ham Knight has been cutting recently, he's dropped a few pounds, so no serious damage is done. The encounter is cleared as Ham Knight saves all 11 misguided souls here, before changing into his red good outfit, as he asks this man where his boss, Crack Mask, is hiding out, and the kind man tells him his current location, before receiving a nice smooch on the forehead. Ham Knight begins heading to Crack Mask, and on his way his comms are hacked by a mysterious entity, who tells him to subscribe to the Charles Carter YouTube channel for more shitpost Arkham content just like this. Upon arrival at Crack Mask's Crack Casa, the Ham Knight finds himself face to face with some new people in need of saving. He knocks 2 of them out and then faces off against 8 more guys who need saving, and much like our previous encounters, we found it best to just take the enemies down and trip them over. There's no need for excessive violence here, just good old fashioned Queensberry rules. Adding these 8 to the count, we then find Ham Knight's worst enemy, Crack Mask, who we haven't seen since we took him down as Man in Ham Origins. Well, okay, there was that cameo in Ham City, but that doesn't count. He comes in with 5 more people to be saved by Ham Knight, so he gets to work. He mostly focuses on Crack Mask though, and while beating him down, he does have to counter his cronies' moves. This does mean though that over time, he saves them all, evident by the fact he doesn't get interrupted by them when he's delivering a speech on quality, kindness, and friendship to Crack Mask. After delivering his speech to him, he throws him out of the window onto a bed of tulips and memory foam, where he can safely rest to think about what he's done wrong. So, that's it. That's what the Ham Knight got up to after saving Man at the end of Man Ham Knight. So, how many people did he save? Well, according to my count, the Ham Knight managed to save 47 people, including Crack Mask, and I think that's a pretty decent attempt. I think there was definitely room to more save people, because there were a few brutal looking takedowns in there, but no one was dead, and I think that's what matters at the end of the day. That was something, wasn't it? Seeing a member of the Bat Babies go out of his way to save lives is truly a jarring sight, something you wish you could unsee. Following Man's disappearance, there really wasn't much point to the Bat Babies' lives anymore. Rotting had no father to try and trick into loving him, Dick had no one to mildly inconvenience when he got bored, and Bra only had Rotting, which is arguably a fate worse than death. The world was stale because of the lack of Man. Bra, though, well, again, she had arguably the toughest road ahead, a marriage to Rotting, the human embodiment of the word blockhead. The pair got married, though, and it went off without a hitch. The whole family gathered, even Man watched on from a gargoyle. He still had work to do, and obviously wasn't dead, but he had to keep himself focused on the murder mission while still in Gotham. And before you ask, how did the Bat Babies not know Man was still alive? Have you seen them? The smartest one is Bra, and she's too busy calling people on Reddit chuds to notice Man is still operating in Gotham at this point. And do you really expect Rotting to understand half the stuff that happens to him? No, I didn't think so. But anyway, the wedding came and went. Mr. and Mrs. Drake Ghul were set to jet off to a lovely island for their honeymoon, but 2 disasters struck at once, and that's where we meet the Bat Babies for the final time. We open with Dick in the aftermath of Man's explosive passing. He finds some of the Wizard of Cobb's men playing with illegal firearms, and for this they must die. It's as simple as that. Dick drops in through the roof and uses a fear multi-takedown to instantly dispatch of 4 evildoers. He does this pretty effectively, and it's at this point I realise that Dick has electric penetration devices on him at all times, which would prove to come in fairly handy, as if we go all the way back to the Asylum, we know that electrical currents are lethal when combined with the weak hearts of Gotham's thugs, and so for Dick specifically, any enemy which is hit by even the slightest amount of electricity will count as a kill due to the rules laid out from Serial Killer Run Past. The kills continue with this big guy who Dick stuns and then beats down mercilessly as the man goes into cardiac arrest, and the same fate awaits his big buddy as Dick pulls the same move, leaving only a handful of thugs left. We use the Dick Blast to stun these 2 thugs before beating one down and electrocuting the other on 3 separate occasions, making sure he never wakes up. Dick finds a familiar looking van, the same type of van he sent Man after back in Ham Knight's main story. He almost gets jumped, but thankfully his Dick senses start tingling and he manages to thwart the attacker, who eventually, after being under threat of electrocution and thus instant death, tells Dick Wing that the Wizard of Cobb is about to be broken out of the GCPD, so he has to stop this. He can't let Man's hard work on the night of Halloween go to waste. He heads over there and has to face the ghosts of his past as he walks past the Man signal, which was blown up by Man on that fateful night. He finds a group of the Wizard's men trying to break him out of his imprisonment, but Dick swoops in and begins sorting them out, electrocuting this big thug and beating his ribcage into a fibrous powder, before catching this thug in a Dick Blast and knocking him out forever, and using a beatdown on the final thug to put him to a permanent end. Dick then finds himself faced with 12 armed thugs. How many kills does he get here? Well, I'll tell you. This section proved to be a little bit harder than I remembered, but once I got my eye in, I was able to guide Dick to a handful of kills. The first came when Dick got caught in the act and had to improvise, putting a massive electrical current through the onlooking thug's body before putting him down for good as he flipped out of the nearby window. Kill number 2 occurred when Dick re-entered the GCPD and found himself faced with another thug. He struck first though and put enough voltage through the thug to stop his heart. Electrocution combined with asphyxiation got our next kill before Dick successfully rage baited this minigun wielding thug into his trap. What is that trap, you might ask? Well, it's a boot to the jaw combined with a healthy amount of electricity directly into the brain. An unprotected poisoned Frankensteiner claimed our next kill, an electrical smack to the brain gets our next, and his friend meets the same painful fate, as the final 3 kills of the section come through a rapid fire fear multi-takedown. On the roof we find another group of 12 thugs trying to get their Oz out of the Wicked Witch of Gotham's castle, but they're about to get dicked. Dick Wing drops in and says hello, freezing his first victim from the outside in, turning him to a Dixicle, patent pending. The next kill gets added to the counter when Dick palm strikes this ogre's nose into... I thought I wrote that. That's funny. Oh. The ogre's napalm strikes the ogre's nose into his brain and throws him into an active electrical fence. Oh my god. Next up is the classic throw and burn, named because he throws this man into these pipes and burns him to death, before Dick shoots this ninja to death. Dick's next environmental pop strikes his brain into his nose. That's the best bit of scripting I think I've ever done. That's so funny. Dick palm strikes the ogre's Dick palm strikes the ogre's nose into his brain and throws him into an active electrical fence. Oh my god. Oh, that is... Oh, I forgot I wrote that. That's funny. Anyway, where were we? Next up is the classic throw and burn, named because he throws this man into these pipes and burns him to death, before Dick shocks this ninja to death. Dick's next environmental takedown comes when he decides he's had enough of this random thug who had done nothing to him, and he throws an AC unit at his stupid head. Again, Dick palm strikes a nose into a brain and fries this man against a fence again. I am truly a poet. He then throws this poor man into these pipes, killing him and finishes off by roundhouse kicking this ninja's jaw off his skull. The Wizard of Cobb thinks he's made a grand escape due to Dick's deceptive nature, but unfortunately for him he's wrong, and as soon as he thinks he's escaped he's promptly thrown back into the castle and locked away forever, never coming back. Ever. So how many kills did Dick get? Well, he got 29 kills, which is extremely impressive for such a short outing. But what about Rotting? What's he been up to since Man's death? Well, let's find out after this announcement. I am extremely excited to announce that I was invited onto my new favourite podcast, the Gotham City Radio Hour, to talk about one of my favourite episodes of the critically acclaimed animated series, I Am the Knight. Myself and the wonderful host Patrick had a great time discussing the episode, along with a load of other little side tangents like how we became Batman fans, how we became animated series fans, and why exactly Batman punches so many crocodiles. And in even better news, my GCRH debut is out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts this Friday, so head over there and give it a listen when it drops. You'll get to know me better past my shit posting on this channel, you'll get some top quality Batman content, and there's enough content already there with people a lot cooler than me to keep you entertained, and a ton more to come while you try your hardest to get the Requiem for a Killer achievement in the Iceberg Lounge. So click the link in the description and go check it out. Seriously, it's exactly what you're missing. Anyway, let's get back into the video. So, Rotting, the boy blunder of the Mann family, a red and yellow stain on Mann's nearly flawless legacy. In his final outing in the Man-Ham Killer universe, he decides to try and get revenge on Face, a villain he has a personal grudge against since because back in the Ham City, Face actually locked up Date Boy, which meant years later, Rotting forgot his and Bra's honeymoon date, hence why he's here being nagged by Bra about not being there with her. Rotting decided to sport a new outfit to get revenge on Face, a suit built for comfort and speed. This encounter is full of opportunities for kills, and we use this to our advantage as we rig this wall with explosive gel. We leave it here hoping someone runs into our trap, and there we go. Rotting's first kill. He then gets 3 kills by way of a fear takedown, the costume striking fear into the hearts of his victims as he slams them all over the shop before letting them die. He heads back up into the rafters and stalks his prey further. A medic walks into the killing field, and so Rotting uses a classic man technique as he rams the medic's head into a junction box, killing him in one of the most brutal ways a man can go, before again he heads back into the rafters to hunt. In a move I never thought we'd see again, in a moment of retribution akin to Vader's face turn at the end of Return of the Jedi, Rotting utilises an exploding generator to grab a kill. This was a truly monumental moment in the series. Rotting has done us proud, and because of this he'll get a new name. Henceforth, you shall be known as Darth Binder. Bin. He's going to be called Bin. Bin uses his newfound tactical know-how to delay taking this thug down until he's within striking range of a junction box, and well, you know the rest. A fear multi-takedown claims Bin's next 2 kills, a small addition but one nonetheless. Bin then uses his newfound vision of spontaneous combustion to blow this wall up, killing the man who walked past it at the wrong time. And the next kill comes when, after some light aura farming, Rotting slams the butt of this gun into this man's upper spine, ultimately finishing the room off by jamming the rot stick into the final guy's C1 vertebrae. He then interrogates the last man breathing and asks him where Face is. The man says Face is in the Face Star, a galactic ship made up to look like a standard mansion in the heart of Bloodhaven. Bra begins berating him for not getting to their honeymoon destination, but Bin knows he can give her the best gift of all time, a dead face, finally putting small good Harry out of his misery. He begins his assault on the Face Star by killing this thug standing behind this weak wall, using the classic man technique of blunt force trauma to the back of the skull. His next 2 kills come when he perfectly times this fear multi-takedown and smashes both of these guys to death using his man-taught brutal efficiency. And in the penultimate fight of the assault on the Face Star, Bin doesn't get many kills, claiming 1 right at the end. However, he does swing a few enemies round and then throw them at walls. I'm not sure how or why he does this, it certainly doesn't provide a tactical advantage, but it works and he wins. His next kill comes after Bin, in one of the most cinematic and also surefire kills of the series, pushes this guy out of a window which is like 30 feet up, holds his collar and falls directly onto him while still holding his collar. I don't care what you say, this guy has a crushed throat, probably like 30 other broken bones. He is probably the most dead someone has been in this series. Here we are, the final fight of the serial killer series. Bin's chance to take the mantle from Man, at least for today. Bin begins the fight by jumping on this guy's chest, adding him to the count, before throwing this fan into this man. Bin then utilises the next fan on this guy, ending his life, before he moves around the arena and smacks the face off this dude's head using a shield. In another power move, he picks this thug up and rams his head straight into this spotlight, almost definitely frying his brain and taking the light from his eyes. He takes the rest of the thugs out and Face makes himself known, shooting Bin and knocking him down. He tells Bin he's useless, he could never be Man, and he's glad he forgot his honeymoon because now he gets the final kill of the series. But as he monologues, the speaker glitches and plays the first second of my favourite song ever, which distracts Face long enough for Bin to jump up, catch Face's dropped wallet and jam the rot stick into his skull, cracking it and killing him, bringing the serial killer run to an end. Well, that's it. It's over, but we still need to know how many kills the two former boy wonders got in the final kill count ever. Well, in his final outing, the newly named Bin got a grand total of 24 kills. And that means if you combine the pair's score, they got a grand total of 53 kills in the entirety of the final episode of the Kill Count series. So, after Bin kills Face and Dick seemingly lets the Wizard of Cobb live, the family's kill count reaches its ending, all of their murderous careers coming to an end, and their final number, well, it's very impressive. Between Man, Dick, Bin and Bra, they got 1,322 kills, a number that Bin can't even count to, let alone fathom. But all good stories must come to an end. Bat-Bale had The Dark Knight Rises, Max Payne got his send-off in his third game, Ethan Hunt got the final reckoning, Star Wars got its sixth and final movie in the form of Revenge of the Sith, or Return of the Jedi, depending on which way you look at it, but whichever way you look at it, there are only 6 main Star Wars films, so it doesn't matter, and Man, well, he gets this. Thank you all so much for the support on the series, it's been one hell of a ride. Thank you to Val Strakuga for lending his talents to this send-off, and officially making our respective Man series canon to each other, and thank you to you, the loyal Man enjoyers. Sit back, grab your tissues, and get ready for Man's official ending as I improvise an entire eulogy live, as we said bye to Man for good. This is how it happened. This is how Man died. This is so sad, guys. Can we get rips in the chat for Man? Oh my god, his eyes are still fucked. That's kind of taken away from the moment a bit. It's happening. Rest in peace, Man. Oh god, well, I'm actually getting a little bit emotional over this. This actually feels like the end of Man. But it's not. It's not the end of Man. He'll be back. He'll be back for Arkham Shadow. Sorry, I meant ham sandwich. That's what I'm calling that, by the way. It's ham sandwich. Yeah, I'll leave it up. I'll leave it up. God, this is so sad. This is actually making me a little bit sad. It shouldn't be, because it's not real. It's a shit post. But this is genuinely making me a little bit upset. Like, I feel like I've poured like 2 weeks of my life into this, and now it's all just come to an end. We don't need to talk about Calendar Man right now, bro. We need to talk about Man. The music is so sad. I mean, it's so good. Pickle Pale for ham music. Punctual Pete. Oh, God. This is really sad. You were all there at the beginning, and now we're all here at the end. M for Man in chat. Yeah, can we get some M's in the chat for Man?
This is how it happened. This is how the man died.
There we go. It's over. Man Ham Knight. It's done. That is Mike Ehrmantraut, yeah. That's how it happened. Something's in my man. Yeah, no, something is in my man. It's me. Wow. I didn't expect this stream to get so emotional. That's really hit me. That's hit me quite hard. It may have been a shitpost, but you still put effort into it. Yeah, true. Yeah, I'll leave this one up. It's alright. We'll be back. Why has that actually made me upset? That's actually upset me. I shouldn't have done that. Oh, now it's going to play the fucking slideshow and I'm going to get even more upset. Guys, do you remember this? Do you remember this when Man first went to the Ham Asylum? God, little did we know what would occur. Little did we know. Is this the end? Yeah, this is the end of the Charles Carter YouTube channel. This is it. There's no point anymore. What's the point in carried on? God, do you remember the first appearance of Chiller Croc? God, that was so good. I miss Chiller Croc. There's Harry Quinn and Quincy. Yeah, this has been an experience. You've just witnessed the end, the canonical end of Man. Him and Fred are now sat in a cave somewhere on Instagram Reels. I genuinely can't believe this. Any creator who makes anything puts part of themselves into the work. Don't be ashamed, it was dumb, but dumb can still be fun. Will Smith in the credits. Yeah. No, thank you, Human. That's a good way of thinking about it. Yeah, no, that actually did make me a little bit sad. Man's suit was different in Asylum than the rest of the games. Was he trying to change his drip? Yeah, especially the symbol. A symbol across his thing. Oh, it's playing the sad music now. IG Real or YouTube Shots? Both. Yeah, I'll keep this up as like the Man series finale. Wait, am I allowed to call it the finale and then like actually? Oh, look, it's Bone. It's Bone. I miss Bone. Am I allowed to call it a finale and then still upload? Like still upload like the ham sandwich ones and the DLC. Canonical finale. Yeah. What should I title it? Oh, this was when Man discovered inverted takedowns. Seemingly on an Arkham guard. What a weird picture to use. Ham sandwich and DLC are prequels, but this is the end. That's true. Can you read Man's last will for us? I'm sure he had something for us, his unwavering fans. He did actually. I'll read it to you now. Man lived a long and happy life, and this was his final testament. He said he wants his gadgets to be left to you, the people. I get to keep his suit for taking him on the journey, and most of all, anyone who commented on the videos gets to have a bat baby, which I'm just reading on the credits now, but he said he wanted you to have a bat baby. So he's blessing you, your future self, with a beautiful child, directly from Man. Whether it was from your wife or your husband, he wants you to know that he loves that child and he loves you as well. This is the finale. Title it, This Is How It Happened, This Is How Man Died. He also said that he wanted the finale of the series to be called This Is How It Happened, This Is How Man Died. Because this really is it. This is the canonical end. It might not have been the complete Nightfall, and his wife still may be stuck in the control of Riddler, but this is genuinely the end, canonically. For now, at least. Because soon, Man could return. We don't know where Man's future lies. Only Warner Brothers do. But what we do know is that wherever he ends up next will be a place full of murder, full of kills, and full of Catwoman. And that's what matters. Because at the end of the day, we were all united under one thing here. And that is kills.
That is the thought of taking someone's life, stealing the light from their eyes, and ultimately watching them die. And I think we should all celebrate man's life. From his beginning in the oranges to his end in the night. It truly was a journey. Not a journey we can forget either. Because sometimes you just have to sit back and not cry because it's over, but smile because it happened. Because it did happen, and we were all here for it. All of you were here, from the first episode to the last episode. This was the last episode. The people in this chat right now are the man's supporters and will be getting personalised manarangs and a personalised rope that they can personally put themselves in an inverted takedown position with. And man might be there to cut the rope. And you never know, he might return after this. But we will look back on his life, and we will look back with fond memories. And ultimately, we will remember him for who he was. And he was man. The king of the kills. A title stolen from the Joker. I meant Jonler. And bestowed upon him in the Ham City. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to Human, to Batman for this wonderful idea. He really, really made this. Without him, we wouldn't be sat here today. So thank you, Batman, specifically to you. You have made wonderful memories on this channel. And thank you to everyone else. Six, Professional Ghost, Joey's Own Place. Everyone, Big Bruh, Scott, Riker, Michael, everyone. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.